You can't. Cersei has offered a lordship to the man who brings her your head.
She ought to offer her cunt. Best part of her for the best part of me.
Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. This is our we're not doing a Star Wars live show this week because
there ain't no news.
Yeah, but also like we're gonna be really busy with Star Wars Acolyte when it comes out, and we're just gonna chill. This is the next installment of our weekly series we've been running the last few weeks called Buzz Recap,
where Daniel talks at me for 2 hours about Game of Thrones.
And we're going to continue that tradition today, except that it hurts a little less because we've made some quite stiff drinks, giggity. And I'm sure.
Also, we're already past your favorite character dying, so there's not anything else happening. Pedro Pascal.
Oh, he's not my favorite character, but he's up there. He is really good.
Yeah, I'm just saying there can't possibly be anything that painful in the rest of the show. I mean, we've already passed the part where that dude got his dick cut off.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Joffrey get killed, which was surely the emotional high point. Like, nothing can possibly be better than that.
There is a lot of joy in that episode. So while you're here, by the way, if you could, this will be a
like,
live
comment,
stream.
subscribe.
Yeah, this will be a live stream, and also I'll clean the audio up and actually put it on our videos tab as well. Next week we're not going to do season 6. We're going to do House of the Dragon season 1, which you've seen, so you'll be able to like participate because you kind of know what happens
in broad terms, but I remember very little.
There are lots of names. And they all sound identical to one another. Rhaenys, Rhaenyra, Aemon, Aegon, Laena, Baela.
Yeah, we can use my family bush diagram.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'll figure out a way to get that in there. So I was a huge idiot last week.
Were you?
And because of a numbering error in my notes, I left out the season finale of season 4.
Whoops.
And I remember thinking at the time, like, is this really how the season ends? And then I was like, well, it's the end of my notes. So I suppose.
Surely that must be the end.
Yeah, it's not. I left out an entire. And
you wouldn't make an obvious mistake like that, would you?
I was like, oh, all that stuff that happens. I was like, oh, that must happen at like the beginning of season 5, which would be a weird place to put it. Yeah. It's funny because it's like the most consequential episode of the entire season.
Oh, well. Oops.
And the cool thing is that season 5, which we're also doing today, is also an insanely consequential season. And we've reached the part of Game of Thrones where like it's Game of Thrones in its heyday and most fans adore it. Right. And then as you get to season 6 through season 8, opinions start to vary a little bit more. What do you remember?
The last thing I remember is the free folk attacking the wall.
Okay, so there's a battle at the wall.
Yeah.
And then Jon goes to treat with Mance Rayder, thinking maybe I can kill him.
Surely.
Right.
Yeah.
Tyrion loses his trial by combat.
Yep.
Which means
he is fucking off to the east.
Not yet. No. He lost the trial by combat, so he is guilty of the crime.
Oh yeah,
and will be executed.
Okay.
And then Daenerys is doing shit over in Essos, and we'll talk about when we get there.
Freeing the slaves.
Yeah. So
the Hound and Arya are still on their magical mystery tour.
Right. So I've got a couple of maps we're gonna refer to because I don't want to crash this software here. But
don't want to crash it again.
Right. Jon Snow leaves Castle Black and goes to talk to Mance Rayder, who is pretty close to Castle Black. He's like set up camp, right?
Yeah, he's laying siege.
Yeah. He surrendered to the Wildling Guards, and he's like, I want to talk to Mance, and they're like, okay. So they take him to Mance's tent, and Mance notices that Jon is wearing his Night's Watch all black because they all wear all black, right? And he's like, Jon was like, I was the spy. I'm so sorry. And
sort of a Hux, I'm the spy.
Yeah. And Mance is like, oh man, I kind of liked you. And they talk about their dead because there was a big battle. Jon, the Night's Watch took heavy losses, and the Free Folk lost some pretty important people, including Ygritte. Right.
That giant.
Right. Yes. Who, by the way, when they have this conversation, Mance tells him like that giant had a family line that went back thousands of years before the first men.
Shit.
Like that was an ancient fucking giant, and now he's dead. And Jon's like, well, my two friends Pip and Gren died, and they're from farms. And so they decide to have they toast a drink to their dead, right? And Jon's like, I have a proposal for you. Turn around and go home, and you won't lose any more men. And Mance is like, don't fuck with me. You're low on men. You're low on supplies. I've got people going right now to Castle Black to attack like the east. I think the west side where it's undefended. Like Castle Black will fall today. So like, stop fucking around with me.
Jon's like, wait a minute, that's not very nice. I came here to talk.
Yeah, that's not how this is supposed to go. Mance says, counter proposal. If the Night's Watch will open the gate, let us through, no harm will come to you, and we'll just farm the land. Like, we really just want to get away from the White Walkers, right?
Which,
and
understandable.
Right. And Jon's like, that's never going to happen. And there's this tense moment where Jon sees a knife in a table that's used for like carving meat. And he looks at it, and then Mance like looks over at it, and he's like, you know what? You could probably get there before my guards got you, and you could probably kill me before they got to you. Yeah. But your death will not be good. I guarantee it. And Castle Black still falls tonight. So like, you know, what even is the point?
I have a question. This is apropos of absolutely nothing.
Sure.
Why don't the Free Folk just go around the wall?
I have no idea.
Like just get on some boats and just go around.
Well, remember that this
or like go down that river on the west side.
So these are manned castles.
Okay.
So this is Eastwatch by the Sea, which is another castle that guards this part. And what you're saying is, why don't they do one of these?
Yeah.
Right. And I have no idea. Because Shadow Tower definitely, like, they can defend this river, right? I don't know. So they're both staring at each other, and like Jon's like thinking it through, right? They start to hear war horns.
Oh. And
Mance looks at Jon, and he's like, is this a fucking trick? Like, what is happening? And oh, what happened? What did I do?
I think you pulled it to the front.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to fix that now. Oh wait, no. Go to the back.
There we go.
Back of the bus. That was a bad joke.
You can't say that.
Yeah. So the war horns, right? Mance looks at Jon, and he's like, "What the fight? Like, you came here to treat with me, and like, what trickery is this, right?" So they go outside, and there is an army attacking the camp from both sides.
Huh.
And it is Stannis Baratheon and his new army that he bought in Bravos.
Huh.
With the ships and shit.
The fuck's he doing up here?
Well, remember, he got the Raven about the White Walkers. And so he's like, we're going to go north and help with that. And then we'll, I'll become king or whatever.
Yeah. Honestly, good for him for having his priorities in order.
Yeah. Stannis is not, this season is going to darkly contradict this. Stannis at his heart is not a bad man. He's bound by honor. He cares a lot about honor, and he convinces himself to do really terrible things in the name of that, right? He's also just kind of an asshole that no one likes, just because he doesn't show emotion very well. He doesn't get people, and
what you're saying is charisma is his dump stat.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so Mance goes like the Free Folk are like gonna fight, and then Mance throws down his swords, and he's like, "No, I'm tired of like my people have seen enough bloodshed. Like this will not happen. Because I mean, Stannis has a huge fucking army, right?
Mhm.
Like Mance is done. The free folk are done. So they demand that Mance kneel before the true king Stannis. And Mance says the free folk do not kneel. Sorry, you're beyond the wall. I am the king beyond the wall. And so Stannis sees Jon and is like, you're fucking Jon Snow. You're Ned Stark's boy.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, what the fuck are you doing here? And he's like, it's been a long night. We just had a big battle. And I'm trying to, and he's like, well, what should I do with fucking Mance Rayder? And he's like, take him prisoner. But, instead of executing him, take him prisoner. Because he's a good man, So they all return to Castle Black. Can I copy this? Is that allowed?
Duplicate.
Yeah.
Yep, there.
It's not what I want to do. I want to take it to a different map. You know what? That's fine. So we're gonna go to Castle Black. I'll just pull up my my little folder here. So when I say Stannis, assume that his just dudes are with him, right? So, and we also have Mance Rayder here with him too. They bring him back.
I think he might be in your free folk.
Oh, you're right. You know my system better than I do.
Just read it kind of quickly.
So now there's a big party at Castle Black.
Mm-hmm. Not the fun kind of party.
No, well, it depends on whose side you're on. And remember, Tormund is a prisoner here already, right? They captured him. The one Thenn that we meet gets a fucking ball ping hammer to the head and dies. So he's not there anymore. So everyone gets back to Castle Black. They burn the dead after the battle because that's what you do to avoid White Walkers. That's how you get White Walkers. It's like getting ants. So Jon looks around and sees Melisandre, who's just staring at him. And he's like, who the fuck is that? And Santa's like,
she's like, you want to see my tits?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, just wait. So beyond the wall, pretty close to where all this is happening, by the way. Bran
and buddies.
Yeah. And the Reed children, Jojen and his sister, are on their journey to find the three-eyed raven, right? Mm-hmm. And because he's going toward that weirwood tree that he saw, the magic tree in his vision, right? So Jojen has become very sick and can't walk.
So Hodor's carrying too.
Yeah. And so they find the tree that he saw in the vision, and then they're attacked by wights.
Oh.
But they're like really, really old wights. They're just skeletons, pretty much. Bran works into Hodor and fights the wights, but they're pretty quickly overwhelmed. All seems lost until the wights start bursting into fireballs.
Huh. Don't see that every day.
Yeah. So in the confusion, Jojen is stabbed repeatedly by a wight. And a mysterious girl calls to them, and she's like, you gotta fucking leave Jojen, and he's gonna die anyway. You guys gotta come into the cave. And Jojen's like, no, you guys, really, it's fine. And so they do. They go into the cave, but his sister slits his throat to give him, so he's not like eaten, by wights or whatever, to give him a merciful death. So they get to the entrance of the cave. The wights try to follow, but as soon as they cross over the threshold, they shatter. Right? And so we meet the mysterious girl, who is one of the children of the forest.
The fuck?
Yeah. She is not human.
No.
Yeah. So, and she's able to throw fireballs and shit. And
despite being a tree?
She kind of looks like a tree, yeah. So she explains that White Walker magic doesn't work in the cave. So the children of the forest were original non-human inhabitants of Westeros. Who carved. So like if you look at especially in House of the Dragon, they have that Godswood with the weirwood tree, and it has a face carved into it, and you see those throughout Westeros. They're the ones that carved the faces into the trees. And they taught the first men to worship the old gods.
How'd that work out for him?
Well, I mean, people still say in Westeros they swear something by the old gods and the new. So they did this weird fusion of faiths, and it just kind of like turned into a thing. So they go deeper into the cave, and then they meet the three-eyed raven. Don't get too used.
That's not a raven. That's a dude.
No. Don't get too used to him.
Also, he has 2 eyes, not 3.
Right. Well, it's metaphorical. Don't get too used to him because they immediately recast him.
Just saying, George R.R. Martin is a fucking hack.
Yeah. So it turns out that the three-eyed raven tells Bran that Jojen knew what was going to happen to him. Mm-hmm. He saw it in a vision, and he brought Bran anyway. Huh. So he knew how he was going to die, and that's where he was going to die and everything.
Bold.
So Bran, who's just a kid, asks him, "Oh my gosh, are you going to make it so that I can walk again?" And he's like, "No." Like,
suck it, kid.
Yeah. Fucking loser. You're never going to walk again, but you will fly. Huh. And he's like, "I'll take that."
All right. Yes. Fair trade.
All right. So in Meereen, Daenerys meets with supplicants. She's like bogged down in the bureaucracy of being a queen. And so she sees like hundreds of supplicants every day. They come in and ask for something. And, but she's like, "I'm the queen. I have to do it." So one of the slaves comes to her and wants to be sold back into slavery.
That's a bit strange.
And she's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Honestly, my life was simpler. The family that owned me was very kind to me. The children depended on me, and it was my life. And now I have nothing." And basically what she comes to is, if it's a choice that you are making, then you can do it. So, and you might remember that Drogon attacked that herd of goats. Okay, so another goat herd shows up, but has the body of his kid.
Oh,
just burned to a fucking crisp. And she's like, "That a dragon didn't do that, right?" And he's like, "No, your dragon did it." Fuck. And she's like, "Oh, great. Okay, everyone, where is Drogon?" And they're like, "We have no idea."
She's like,
"Yeah,
this fucking dragon, dude."
Yeah. So Daenerys realizes how dangerous her dragons have become.
Literal weapons of mass destruction.
So she takes Viserion and Rhaegal, and they go into the catacombs beneath the pyramid, and she chains them up with collars in the dungeon. And it's really sad. When she leaves, they cry out for her, and she has to close the door, and it really bothers her and everything. Okay, so in King's Landing, Tyrion is sentenced to death, and he's awaiting his trial, right? So, well, first of all, Cersei and Qyburn. So you remember that Oberyn died, but he practically killed the mountain.
Fucked him up.
Right, yeah. So it turns out that Oberyn was using a poison blade with manticore venom. And so not only did he kill Gregor Clegane, it's he's not dead. It's taking a long time for it to work, but he is like in really bad shape, and like it's a very, very bad death for him, which would, if you think about
which
Oberyn,
is the point.
Yeah. So like from the grave, Oberyn is like, yes. So Cersei asks Qyburn, she's like, "Can you save him?" And Pycelle, the maester, he's not on here, doesn't matter, is like, "No." And Qyburn's like, "Oh, I can save him." And she kicks Pycelle out. She's like, "You're fucking useless, get out." So Qyburn grabs some equipment and shit, and then he's like, I think I can save him. Thank the god of science, but it will change him. And Cersei is like, "I don't give a fuck. Like, I need my big attack dog.
Make
back."
it happen.
Yeah. So Cersei goes to find Tywin, and she's like, "I regret to inform you, I will not be marrying Loras." Because remember, he set that marriage up, and she really didn't want to. And Cersei finally plays her trump card, and she's like, "I will tell everyone the truth about me and Jaime, and your legacy will be over." And he plays dumb. He's like, "What are you talking about? The truth about you and Jaime?" And she says, "You never noticed what was happening between your own children."
We were fucking.
Yeah. Jamie and I have been fucking since we were literal teenagers. And it all underneath your nose, all 3 of my children are Jamie's children. And Tywin accuses her of lying out of rage. And she's like, you know that's not true. And she turns around and leaves. And she finds Jamie and is like, I told Dad. Dad knows. And she fucks him right there on the table.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay.
Those 2 are so fucked up.
Right. Oh, yeah. It is so, the dynamic is so weird. So Tyrion awaits his trial. The door opens and it's Jamie. And he frees him. Huh. And he's like, Varys will help you escape. I have to get out of here. No one can know that I did this. And Jamie and Tyrion share a hug.
Aww.
A really sweet embrace. And then Jamie leaves. Tyrion and Varys are like making their way through the castle. And Tyrion stops and decides to go on a little detour.
Probably not the best idea, but go off.
To the Tower of the Hand of the King, which is Tywin.
Just to last, fuck you, Dad.
So he goes up to Tywin's room and notices that there is someone in his bed. He's not in his bed, but there's someone in his bed. And he gets closer. And sees that it is the love of his life, Shay.
Oh.
And she thinks that he's Tywin. And like at first, and she's like, oh, my lion, you're back. And Tyrion is just standing there like stunned.
The fuck?
She goes to get help. She goes to scream for help. And he strangles her to death. Wraps something around her neck. While he's sobbing, strangles her to death.
Later.
So he finds Tywin in the toilet. He's
taking a shit.
Yeah, he's an old man. It's in the middle of the night. He's taking his poo, right? Before he goes into the toilet, that stupid fucking crossbow that Joffrey was in love with is hanging on the wall. And Tyrion grabs it and takes it with him. And he opens the door to the toilet, and like Tywin looks up from his newspaper and is like, oh, okay. Let's all calm down.
Let's just, have a talk about this.
Yes. And he's like, you don't think that I was going to let them execute a Lannister, one of my sons? And he lays on this thick emotional manipulation about like, you are my son. I would never let them do that to you. And Tyrion's like, what about Shay? And he's like, is that what you're mad at? You're mad about a whore? And Tyrion's like,
wrong answer.
So help me, mother of God, if you call her a whore again. And he calls her a whore, and he shoots him in the shoulder with a crossbow. And or in the gut, like in the gut.
Yeah.
Or somewhere. And so Tywin drops the emotional manipulation, berates him, is like, you're no son of mine. Tyrion shoots him in the heart, drops the crossbow, walks away. Tywin Lannister, his legacy, or at least his part of his legacy, is gone.
Fucking dead.
Yep. And he meets up with Varys, and Varys is like, where were you? And he's like, don't worry about it. We can go now.
I had to do some things.
Okay, now, in the Vale. So remember, these guys found out that Aunt Liza is dead. And so they're just on their way back. Bran and Pod are walking around. Bran walks past a rock and sees Arya Stark practicing her water dancing. Keeps walking, stops, looks over, and it was like,
wait a minute.
Hi. And Arya's like, hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Don't mind me practicing my sword.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're Arya Stark. And Arya's like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, I am Bran of Tarth. This is my Squire Pod. I swore an oath to your mother to bring you home. Let me take you to wherever. And right about then, the Hound like from behind the rock, who's taking a piss, is like, who the fuck are you again? And she's like, I'm Brienne of Tarth. I'm gonna take her to safety. And the Hound is like, well, where the fuck is that? Like, there is no safe place in this world for this girl. Like, it's just her and me, and I'm protecting her. And Brienne's like, well, I guess we got to have a sword fight then.
Yeah.
And Sandor's like, I thought you'd never fucking ask. And so they take out the swords and they have a fierce fucking duel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're both, remember, Brienne, it's played by Gwendolyn Christie.
Yeah.
She's like 9 foot tall, right? And the guy that plays the Hound is like 9 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
And they're beating the shit out of each other. She like bites part of his ear off and shit. And she finally gets a good angle and is able to kick him off the side of a cliff.
Oh.
And he falls.
Sucks to be him.
Yep. In the confusion, Arya just fucks off and disappears.
Understandable.
Yeah. So I just did all of that from what I remember in my memory. So let me get caught up on my notes. I want to make sure that. Oh yeah. Okay. So Brienne's like, Pod, where the fuck is Arya? And he's like, I don't know. She fucking disappeared.
I was watching you fight.
Yeah. It was badass, by the way. And she's like, what?
Thank you, but you're not helping.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I guess let's go and keep an eye out, I guess. Arya finds Sandor as like where here's the cliff, here's the ground down here, and the rocks and shit. His body is broken and he's almost dead.
Yeah.
And he's got bones sticking out of his leg. Like the dude is in trouble. Yeah. And he asks Arya to kill him. And she only stares at him. And then he tries to goad her. And he's like, remember the butcher's boy, your friend, the butcher's boy that I killed back in season 1? I fucking enjoyed that. I hated that fucking kid. Like he should have heard him scream when I killed him and blah, blah, blah. And there's no reaction from her. And then he begs her. And it's really heartbreaking. And she still doesn't react. She walks up to him and takes his bag of silver and leaves.
Ooh.
Leaves him to die.
Good shit, Arya.
Yeah. Arya rides on horseback to the Salt's Pans, which is right here. She finds a captain from Bravos and gives him Jack and Hagar's coin and says, Valar Morghulis. And he answers Valar Dohaeris. And she is warmly welcomed, given her own private cabin on the boat. And he's like, we're headed to the free city of Bravos.
Okay.
And that's how the season ends. Okay, season 5. 25 years ago, we're gonna do a little prologue.
Okay.
Cersei and one of her girlfriends are walking through the woods, and they find a witch in a hut.
Okay.
And Cersei's like, tell me my fucking fortune. And so the witch pricks her finger and does some shit. And she's like, okay, you can have three questions. And she's like, that isn't telling me my fortune, but okay. Will I marry a prince? And the witch says, no, but you will marry a king.
Okay.
And she's like, so far, so good.
All right.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Will I have children? And she says, the king will have 20 children, but you will have 3.
Okay. It's a little weird.
And she's like, the fuck does... That doesn't even make sense. And then she goes on and says, gold will be their crowns and gold will be their shrouds.
Okay.
And says, you will be queen, but your reign will not last. A younger and more beautiful queen will take your place. Present day.
Yes.
Also, I guess she never got that third question. Tywin's body is on display in the Great Sept. Cersei arrives to pay respects. She blames Jaime because she knew that he was the one that freed Tyrion. She's approached by cousin Lancel, who has been through some stuff and is now accidentally a part of a religious cult. Yeah. And he
accidentally joined a cult, as you do.
Yeah. So he's got a shaved head. He's got like a star carved into his forehead and shit, and asks Cersei's forgiveness for their incest. And she's like, why don't you say that a little bit louder so everyone can fucking hear you? And she just mocks him and then denies. She's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. in Pentos. Okay, so this is how Varys got Tyrion to Pentos. He put him in a box with holes, and they sailed. And Tyrion spent the entire trip in the box, not even leaving to go to the bathroom. And they make a joke about how he had to push his shit through the holes. Mm-hmm. He's like, you weren't the one trying to push your shit. And he's like, who do you think had to throw the shit over the side of the boat? Like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
So he lets Tyrion out, and it's real gross. Tyrion's a mess. Mm-hmm. He's bitter. He's full of self-loathing for killing his father. Mm-hmm. An immense amount of guilt.
Yeah.
And Varys is like, look, here's the deal. I want you to come with me to Meereen and meet Daenerys Targaryen. She's the rightful heir and is the best choice for the people of Westeros. And Tyrion's like, I'm going to get drunk. Where you take me is your business. And he's like, okay, that's fine. That will do.
Which, relatable.
Yeah. So in Meereen, some weird shit starts happening in Meereen.
Oh.
One of the Unsullied guys goes to a brothel. And so your first thing is like,
you don't
why?
Yeah.
A lot of them would go to brothels just to be held,
just to cuddle
by the women.
Yeah,
because that's not comfort they've ever known.
Nice,
right?
Yeah.
And so this guy goes and is murdered by a member of the Sons of the Harpy.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you that way. I'm going to show you a picture that way you kind of get their vibe.
Down the right.
Down.
A little up.
Yep.
There you go.
They wear these harpy masks and shit. So the Sons of the Harpy are an anti-Daenerys resistance group in Meereen.
Okay.
That they're real crazy about slavery, and they're a little pissed that it's not there anymore.
Of course.
Yeah. They're the Confederacy.
Yeah.
So Hizdar, remember this guy?
Oh yeah.
And Dario and Naharis come back because you remember she sent them on a mission to Yonkaider because some guy was like, I'm the emperor now. And she's like, nope, none of that. I said no emperors, goddammit. Because it was a slave.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm the emperor now. Haha. And she's like, no, that's not what I meant. So they've come back. Their mission was a success. And Hizdar's like, the masters want to reopen the fighting pits because of tradition. And Daenerys is like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. That's fucking barbaric. Also, has anyone seen Drogon? And they're like, we have no fucking clue where he's been.
How did you lose an entire dragon?
Yeah, he's been gone 4 weeks. We have no idea. And so she visits Viserion and Rhaegal, and they are really pissed at her. She like tries to pet one of them, and like they're like, bitch, I will burn you alive. Get the fuck out of here. And so she leaves. Not very happy with Mama.
No.
Okay. In the Vale, Littlefinger and Sansa. Remember, Littlefinger pushed Lysa out the moon door?
Because he has a crush on Sansa.
Right. Let's see. We need Robin on here now. The older Robin, though, because he's grown up a little bit.
Is this the kid who had the fascination with the moon door?
Yes, and drank milk from his mother's tit until he was like 12. It's really weird.
Just a little bit weird.
Yep. And then so Sansa and Littlefinger are watching Jan Royce, who is the commander of the Knights of the Vale, train Robb and Aaron how to sword fight. And
I imagine it's not going well.
He's terrible. He's so fucking bad. And Jan says, and I quote, he swings a sword like a girl with palsy. But he's like, you know what? I'll take him as my ward and I'll train him.
Yeah.
So Littlefinger plans to take Sansa somewhere the Lannisters will never find her, right? Meanwhile, Bran and Pod are trying to figure out what to do because everything they've tried to do has fallen apart, right? And as they are riding their horses, talking about what they're going to do, they ride past a carriage that they can't see into. It rides right past him, and it's fucking Sansa and Littlefinger, right?
Passing in the night.
Yep. So, and they never know who it is. So at the wall, Jon is summoned by Stannis. Which, by the way, when he when he summons Jon, he sends Melisandre to go get him, right?
Hey, you want to look at some tits?
Not yet. Not yet. I think she's in random because she's like a...
Yep.
So like they get on this elevator thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mel's like, hey, Stannis, let's talk to you. And like the entire elevator ride, she's like staring at him and he's like, can you please calm the fuck down? So Stannis plans to retake the north from Roose Bolton.
Okay.
Who's at Winterfell now. And he's like, I want the free folk to fight for me. And I need your help to convince Mance Rayder to bend the knee. And Jon's like,
that's not gonna happen.
Nope, sorry. And he's like, well, will you talk to him? And he's like, I'll talk to him, but I'm telling you right now that shit's never gonna
happen.
So he talks to Mance, and Mance is like, yep, not gonna do it. And he's like, if you don't do it, they're gonna execute you. And Mance is like, will it be a good death? And he's like, well, they're gonna burn you alive. And he's like, so no. So he refuses, and they put him up on a pyre, and they light the fire, and before Mance can lose his dignity and start screaming and begging, from one of the balconies or whatever, Jon Snow shoots an arrow through his heart as an act of mercy.
Yeah.
And Melisandre's real pissed because she loves to see guys burn.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of her thing. Showing people her tits and watching people burn.
Yeah, she really likes that. Okay, so in Bravos, Arya arrives.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that most of her life was spent in Winterfell.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it was just in King's Landing or this area, right?
Yeah.
So she's in Bravos now, an entirely different continent, different country.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. So she, because of her coin, the captain tells her where the house of Black and White is.
Mm.
And so she goes to the house of Black and White, and she meets this old dude. Answers the door. And he's like, what do you want? And she's like, can I hang out with you guys? And he's like, no. Shuts the door. And so she like knocks again. He opens, and she's like, I have nowhere else to go. And he's like, you have
tough titties
literally everywhere else but here to go. So go to one of those places.
You have the entire rest of the world, kid.
So she stubbornly waits outside for like more than a day. And to pass the time, she recites her list over and over of the men she will kill. And the Hound's not on it anymore, obviously,
because he's kind of dead.
She eventually throws her coin away into the ocean, and is like, you know what? I'm going to go check out Bravos. And so she starts walking around the town. She runs into some thugs who want to steal Needle, her really nice sword. Because she's about to draw it and like go down with him, right? This fucking old guy appears. Doesn't say a fucking word. These thugs just turn around and run. And she's like, damn, dude.
How'd you do that?
And he looks at her, and he turns around and walks. And so she follows him, right?
Yeah.
And so he leads her back to the house of Black and White. And she's like, who the fuck are you? Like I came to find you, but then like you came to find me, and it's really weird.
Yeah.
And he tosses her the coin that she threw into the ocean. And she looks down at the coin and then looks back up, and it's Jack and Hagar.
What the fuck?
And Arya's like, fuck, dude, it's Jack and Hagar.
Yeah.
My buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
And Jack and Hagar's response is, a man is not Jack and Hagar. And she's like, okay, well, who the fuck are you? And he says, no one. And that is what the girl must become. And he's like, and you can come in. So she comes in the Flatlands. So I'm going to make him a little bit smaller. They've started their little journey to
their little road trip to Daenerys' place.
Yes. So they've left Pentos. They're traveling to Marine. Tyrion's despondent. drinking himself to death. Tyrion, Cersei has offered a lordship to any man that brings her his head. Yeah. So he's got to be really careful, right? Yeah. Speaking of, in King's Landing, someone brings Cersei the head of a dwarf. And it's like, it's Tyrion. And she's like, no, it's not.
No.
And puts the head down on the table. And I swear to God, this happens. This isn't just me being funny because Qyburn's kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. She puts the head down and Qyburn's like, are you going to keep that?
And no.
And she's like, no, why would I? And he's like, that's fine. Okay. And he like takes it and like walks away. And she's like, okay, that dude's really rude. So Cersei summons Jaime. Because Cersei received a carved viper, which usually means Dorne, with their daughter's Princess Marcella's pendant hanging off of its neck. And it's clearly a threat, right? And so Jaime's like, don't worry, I'll figure this out. I'll figure something out. So also Cersei makes some small council appointments because Tywin's dead. So like,
Yeah.
She appoints Mace Tyrell. Look at this doofus.
Mustache.
Yeah.
Jeez.
He's such a doofus too. This is Marjorie's father. Mm-hmm. Olenna's son. He's going to be the master of ships and the master of coin.
Okay.
She names Qyburn the master of whisperers because Varys has disappeared. No one knows where the fuck he is. And then she appoints her uncle, Kevin, as the Master of War.
Like how there's all these weird fantasy names and then it's just Kevin.
Well, it's Keven.
Yeah, but it's pronounced just Kevin.
Right. Kind of like Oliver.
Yeah.
So Kevin shows up and he does not like Cersei, by the way. And he's like, fuck you, I'm not taking this job. You don't have any authority to appoint shit. So I'm going home and I will await instructions from the king. And then he fucks off. Okay. And she's like, well.
Honestly, good for him.
Yeah, okay then. So meanwhile, Bronn is hanging out. He's settling down with a highborn lady, right? Mm-hmm. And Jaime shows up and he's like, Bronn, I want to go on a road trip to Dorne to check on my daughter, Marcella. Sorry, my niece, Marcella.
Yes.
And Bronn's like, well, I'm betrothed to her. And it's really funny because like this woman that he's betrothed to is like the second daughter. So she doesn't have any like inheritance or anything. Yeah. And she's talking about like how much of a bitch her sister is and everything. And Bronn's like, honey, accidents happen to people all the time. Don't worry about it. We will have this.
We got
castle.
This figured out.
Yeah. And so Bronn's like, I got my woman. Like, she's a little weird. She's a little homely, but I've got my fucking woman. And he's like, well, actually, I canceled out this arrangement so you can come with me on our road trip to Dorne. He's like,
you what?
Yeah. He's like, God damn it, Jaime Lannister, you motherfucker. So he's like, well, no. I guess I
sister
have to
fucker.
Yeah.
Sister fucker.
Yeah.
Not motherfucker. Sister fucker. I mean, maybe.
I'm not saying he didn't,
but
I'm not saying he did.
Yeah.
I don't think we know that. I don't think we know that much about that period of Game of Thrones.
Unsubstantiated claim.
Yeah. So in Dorne, we're finally in Dorne, by the way, the water gardens of Dorne. Ilaria Sand meets with Prince Doran, who we finally get to meet.
Okay.
You might recognize the actor.
Do I?
Yeah, he plays Julian Bashir.
Oh, Alexander Siddig. Yeah.
He's quite a bit older than he was in
for sure. Yeah.
So, Ilaria Sand's like, I have an idea. Why don't we cut up Marcella and send her in pieces to Cersei as revenge for Oberyn's death? And he's like, that's
a little fucked up.
No, we're not going to do that because first of all, Oberyn like volunteered to do that. I should hold on. Marcella's in the Baratheon folder because she's technically a Baratheon because she's down here too.
Supposedly.
Yeah. He's like, first of all, there's no avenging because he
like that was all him.
Yeah. He volunteered and he fucking lost, you know? but apparently so did the mountain. So who knows? And he's like, listen, I want to make peace with the Lannisters. Like, we need to, not being at war would be kind of nice for everyone.
Peace is good for business.
Yeah, and Alaria is outraged by this and storms out, right? So in the Vale, Pod and Brienne stop for some food at an inn.
Is this the one that's all out of chickens?
No, I think it's a different one.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be the Crossroads. Like this really famous one right here.
Well, anyway.
Yeah. So they walk in, they want to get a little bite to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And she walks past the table, stops, looks over. It's Sansa Stark with Littlefinger. And she's like, oh, my fucking luck. Oh, my God.
Oh, my.
So she's like, Sansa, my name is Brienne of Tarth. I pledge you my sword. And Littlefinger is like, who are you again? And she's like, I just said I'm Brienne of Tarth. And he's like, we don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. And like, it seems like for a second, like Littlefinger's, is always ready to jump in and control things. And then Sansa's like, no, I don't fucking know you. And she's like, well, your mom sent me on this mission. And she's like, my mom's dead. So good job.
Yeah.
I'm not going with you. And so there is a whole fight here. Like some other men try to chase them. It doesn't matter. So they leave.
Well, fuck.
Yeah.
Poor Brienne, man. She just can't catch a break.
Yeah. And so she turns to Pod and she's like, Littlefinger seems like a creep, right? And he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the perv stash? Like, the dude's a creep. And she's like, we're going to follow them. And so they decide they're going to follow Sansa and Littlefinger. Mm-hmm. In Marine, Dario and Grey Worm start doing some investigating into the Sons of the Harpy problem.
Okay.
And the cool thing about Dario is that because his men, the Second Sons, have dicks, they can participate in some of the more unseemly activities, and it makes them very good spies. And because they also kind of fit in, right?
Yeah.
And so they are feeding information back, and it has led to the capture of one of the Sons of the Harpy. And so they bring him back to the pyramid before Daenerys, and Daenerys is like, okay, let's execute him. And it leads to an instant shouting match, right? So Barristan, like she kind of dismisses everyone. Barristan Selmy is like, look, your father was a gigantic cunt. You know this. I know this. The whole world knows that the Mad King was a cunt, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, this is exactly something that your father would do, is execute a man without a trial. And she's like, okay, well, he's going to have a trial then. He's going to have a fair trial.
Yeah.
In the meantime, one of Daenerys's like really devoted followers that she freed executes him. As a gift to Daenerys, pretty much. And so Daenerys has him publicly executed to show that, like,
you can't do that.
Yeah, there is law. There's a law here and everything. The slaves aren't very happy about this, and they hiss at her like snakes and they throw rocks at her. Mm-hmm. So later that night, Daenerys is like, I need some air. Walks out on her balcony and takes a nice deep breath in, and hears a noise and looks over at the top of the pyramid, because she's like at the very tippy top.
Yeah.
And it's Drogon.
Oh.
Just kind of like crawling around on the top of
Hey, buddy.
And she is like, oh my God. And reaches her hand out, and he lets her get close, and he sniffs her, and he doesn't like attack her. He's not like crazy dragon or anything.
Yeah.
And then he flies away. And she's like, don't,
dude,
back here.
What the fuck?
Fucking kids, man.
Like, I know you want to go eat some more sheep, but I could really use you here.
Or children.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, no. Bad.
No.
So at the wall, Shireen is... I guess we should probably put Shireen on here now too, right? Because she's here. This sweetheart, Shireen, teaches Gilly how to read.
Oh.
That's her thing. She teaches people to read.
That's nice.
Yeah. And like she teaches Davos how to read, because he was illiterate. And in fact, his son, the one that died at the Battle of Blackwater, was trying to teach him how to read, and then he died. And so Shireen taught him how to read.
So now they have a little book club.
Yeah. So Gilly's learning how to read, which her mother doesn't like because Gilly's a free folk, and and her mom's a huge cunt. So Stannis talks to Jon, and he's like, I sent a letter to Lady Mormont on Bear Island to swear fealty. And he's like, how did that go? And he's like, well, here's her response. Opens it. We only know one king, the king in the north, whose name is Stark.
Okay.
And you haven't met Lady Mormont yet. And we're not going to yet. But Jon's like, that sounds exactly like her. And so Stannis is like, well, how about this? How about I will make you the legitimate heir of Winterfell, and I will make you a Stark if you help me fight the Boltons and the Freys. And Jon goes to talk to Sam, and he's like, I'm going to refuse it because of my vows to the Night Watch. Mm-hmm. It's election time. Remember that election that was kind of brewing?
That's right.
Okay. I was going to have the MSNBC election music up, but then I forgot.
Oh, well. You probably get copyright struck anyway.
Oh, yeah, probably. So there are 3 nominees. Mm-hmm. One of them I left off here because it doesn't matter. Alistair Thorne.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Chris, this guy's a huge cunt. Some dude named Dennis.
Okay.
And someone nominates Jon Snow.
Okay.
And after everyone makes their case. And when the votes are counted, Jon Snow is named the 998th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
Good for him.
And Alistair is like, fuck you, man. I'm going to go over here. In King's Landing, it is time for Tommen's wedding. Whoops. And if you're getting nervous because of how weddings have been going in this world.
Yeah, the weddings don't seem to go very well for anybody.
This one's okay.
Okay.
Because Tommen's a sweetheart. Mm-hmm. Who would want to poison Tommen? I mean, he really is such a sweetheart.
He doesn't like shoot crossbows at whores or anything.
Right. They have their wedding. On their way to the wedding, Marjorie and Cersei are kind of walking together, and Marjorie like gets more cheers than Cersei does, and that pisses her off, and she starts to think about that prophecy, right, that witch made. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the wedding's done.
Okay.
It's nighttime. Mm-hmm. It is Tommen's bedroom.
Oh boy.
And Tommen has now officially lost his virginity. And Tommen is like, this is the best motherfucking thing in the world.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
We're never leaving this room, ever. And Marjorie's like,
I mean,
we can do it as much as we want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing.
It's good to be the king.
In between bouts,
yes,
they do a little pillow talk.
Oh.
And Marjorie's like, you should send your mom to somewhere else, like Casterly Rock. Like, she's very clearly not happy here. It would probably be better for her if she was somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, Tommen tells Cersei this. He's like, you're unhappy here. I worry about you. You should go back to Casterly Rock. And she's like, no, fuck that. I'm not doing that. And she knows that like Marjorie's like in his ear, right? So she goes to see Marjorie, who is with her handmaidens, bragging about the intense night of nonstop sex she just had with the king. And she's making jokes about like, oh, it makes total sense. He's half stag because he's a Baratheon and everything. And that's their house sigil. And she's bragging about it in front of Cersei, knowing that Cersei's like, oh, no one fucks my family but me.
You?
Yeah. She's not into her son.
Yeah.
So she realizes that as the queen, Marjorie has a lot more power. Now, meanwhile, the High Septon, who's like the Pope, is at a brothel doing this very elaborate scene, religious themed scene.
This all tracks with the actual popes of this era, so I can absolutely believe it.
Right. So they're attacked by a bunch of religious fanatics called the Sparrows. and they strip the High Septon naked, and they force him to walk through the streets while they smack his ass with a switch.
Oh, are these the crazy cultists with the things carved in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Lancel is a part of them. Yeah. So he goes and complains to the small council. Cersei doesn't care about what happened, but she's like, ooh, I have an idea. So she meets with the High Sparrow and gets a feel for him and is like, I have a plan forming. So she doesn't imprison the High Sparrow. Oh, I guess we should put the High Sparrow on here since we've met him. I forgot to underline him, so I forgot to put him on here. He's played by the amazing Jonathan Pryce.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah. So she doesn't have the High Sparrow imprisoned, but she imprisons the High Septon. And then she gets a little update from Qyburn on Sir Gregor, who is laying on a table, and like when someone walks past him, he like jerks. He's like, ugh. And then like Qyburn's like, shh,
it's okay.
So in the north, so first of all, Roose is pissed at Ramsay because he sent Ramsay to go collect taxes from someone, and instead he accidentally flayed them alive.
As you do. Yeah. Accidentally.
Yeah. So he's like, look, Tywin's dead. Our alliance with the Lannisters is dead. So like the best way to keep the North together is through marriage. Just keep that in your head. And he's like, okay. Meanwhile, Littlefinger and Sansa are traveling, and they get to Moat Cailin. And Sansa, who knows the area very well, realizes which direction they're going. Oh, shit. I did the spacebar thing even. Where is that button, Chris?
I don't know. Do you not just right click on it and say, there you go. You fixed it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sansa's like, wait a minute.
Hold on a second. We're all messed up. Is that close enough? I'll adjust people if I need to. So she gets them out Cailin and realizes that they are on their way to Winterfell. And does not like this.
No.
Because she knows who's in charge of Winterfell. And Littlefinger's like, you're gonna marry Ramsay Bolton. And no one's gonna be able to get you here. This is a really good plan. Sansa reluctantly agrees, but it wouldn't have mattered if she didn't, because she's kind of at Littlefinger's mercy here. Yeah. Brienne and Potter still following them. Brienne starts to put together what's happening. She's like, wait, this is Moat Cailin. We're on our way to Winterfell. Oh my God, Ramsay Bolton's up there. Oh my God. Fuck. So she tells Pod. She tells Pod a story, a really sweet story, actually. The reason that like when we meet her, why she's so devoted to Renly, who's dead now, that when they were kids, they went to a ball and Brienne was getting a lot of attention, but then she figured out it was because they were making fun of her because she was big. She was this like, really tall girl and everything. And Renly danced with her to make her feel better. Aww. And told her nasty little shits aren't worth crying over. Aww. And that's why she was like, we learned why she was so devoted to Renly, and which kind of led to a chain. Like she ended up with Catelyn and all this other stuff. So Sansa arrives at Winterfell. She's back home.
Just making really good time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot especially in the next 3 seasons after this, there's lots of like instant teleportation.
People just move at the speed of plot.
So there's an awkward moment because she knows that Roose Bolton is the one that stabbed her brother in the heart. So they kind of look at each other and Sansa's like, motherfucker.
I know what you did.
Yeah. Miranda's pissed because she's real jealous.
Yeah.
So Sansa is showed to her old room. And that's where she's going to stay. And the servant shows her to her room and then whispers to her, the North remembers. And Sansa's like, okay, so I got some people here, right? So
we can work with this.
So they hide Theon from her, by the way.
Reek,
yeah. But he sees her and he wants to call out to her, but he doesn't. At the wall, Jon has formally refused Stannis's offer to legitimize him and make him a Stark.
Yeah.
And Stannis is like, well, that sucks. I'm going to leave soon to confront the Boltons at Winterfell. Which sure would have been nice to have your help, but okay. Jon hands out new assignments.
Okay.
Because he's the Lord Commander.
He's the boss.
Yeah. And so there's lots of bureaucracy, lots of papers, and lots of signing things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He makes, out of respect for him, and for his service to the Night's Watch, makes Alistair Thorne head ranger, first ranger.
Yeah.
Which is it's a good job.
Prestigious.
Right? Yeah. Because the dude is a huge cunt, but
he's good at what
he is also fanatically devoted to the Night's Watch. Like it isn't like it's his whole life, right?
Yeah.
And he's just a massive asshole, but he's not necessarily a bad guy, other than he's just an asshole to everyone, right?
Yeah.
And then he tells Janis Slynt, who hid the entire battle, by the way, remember? He's like, you're going to go to Greyguard, which is this old broken down castle. He's like, you're going to go build that shit up again and go staff Greyguard. And Janis Slynt's like, no, not doing it. Fuck you. And he's like, so you're refusing an order from your Lord Commander? He's like, fuck yes, I am. And he's like, I sent you to death. And Janis Slynt's like, you're not going to scare me with that bullshit. And Jon goes, Ollie, bring me my sword. He drags the dude outside, puts his head down. At the last second, Janis begs for mercy. He's like, I'm scared. I've always been scared, blah, blah, blah. Jon looks down at him, cuts his head clean the fuck off. No more Janis Slynt. And this is a great moment because remember, this guy went into a brothel and killed a fucking newborn baby in front of his mother.
Fuck him.
Yeah. So, he does this, looks up in the stands and sees Stannis, and Stannis is like, yeah, that was good.
That was
good for you. Yeah. Okay. In Bravos, Arya started her new job with the Faceless Men.
Her job, she's like 12.
Yeah. I've told you these guys worship the many-faced god, who most people. So in Westeros, they have the 7 god. There's the mother and the blacksmith and the father and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is called the Stranger.
Okay.
Everyone thinks that the many-faced god and death and the Stranger are all the same god. They all refer to the same the same entity, and that's who they worship at the House of Black and White. Her job is cleaning the main sanctuary. So she's got like her little broom, right? And she notices one day Jack and Hagar helping a man drink from a fountain, like in the middle of the room. Yeah. So he gets a cup, he hands it to him. The guy drinks it, falls over dead. Okay. And she's like, someone explain this to me. And they're like, no. don't think I will.
No.
And they take the dude's body to the back room. And she's like, what is happening back there? Someone tell me, please.
That's fucking weird.
She meets another devotee called the Waif. And if you're thinking she looks familiar, it's because she's in Andor.
Oh. Yeah, okay, I guess she is, yeah.
She's Mon Mothma's cousin.
Oh, yeah.
That's like involved in the resistance or in the rebellion.
Yeah.
So the Waif, who is instantly adversarial and antagonistic toward Arya, asks who she is. Asks Arya who she is. And Arya, who's starting to catch on a little bit, is like, I'm no one. And she hits her with a switch. She hits Arya with a switch. And I, like, she does this a couple of times where, like, she asks who she is. She hits her. She asks her again who she is. She says, I'm no one. She hits her, and I quote, Arya says, cunt, and pulls out her sword and is like going to carve this bitch up, right? And Jack and Hagar steps in. He's like, oh, let's all calm down. Yeah. So the Waif is like, ha, 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 like sticks her tongue out while Jack and Hagar is like backs turned, you know? Mm-hmm. So Jack and Hagar is like, how can you be no one when you have all of Arya Stark's shit? All of her clothes, her fucking sword. Like, you can't be no one if you've got all of Arya Stark's stuff. And so Arya goes out to the ocean throws out all of her clothes, and she goes to throw out her sword that Jon made her, and she can't do it. And so she hides it in the seawall under some rocks. Okay, so these guys are making pretty good time, and they are near Volantis.
Yeah, they're just cruising along.
Yeah, they got the cruise control on. When they get to Volantis, they notice that there are a bunch of red priests evangelizing in the street, and they're preaching about a dragon queen savior. And so they're kind of they're preaching the gospel of Daenerys,
yeah,
right, and getting people invested in shit. They go to a brothel, and like Tyrion goes to sleep with a hooker, but he can't do it because he's just so like
he's hung up.
He's got so many fucking problems. He goes out for a piss, goes out to pull his dick out on the balcony, and he gets knocked out by fucking Jorah Mormont, who just happened to be there and saw Tyrion. And
what was he doing all the fucking way out here?
Well, remember, he got banished.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They found out he was a spy, and then quit being a spy, but Daenerys was so betrayed that, you know. So he captures fucking Tyrion and says, I'm going to take you to see the queen. And at first, Tyrion thinks that he means Cersei. He's like, fuck.
Oh, fuck.
Okay. The Iron Bank of Bravos is starting to call in its debt in King's Landing. Because remember, the crown is hideously in debt. Cersei sends Mace Tyrell and Meryn Trant. She sends Meryn Trant to guard him, because Meryn Trant's a part of the King's Guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might remember Meryn Trant.
I think I do.
He killed Syrio Forel, Arya's water dancing teacher, and he is on her list.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, okay, you go to Bravos, try to negotiate better terms. And Mace thinks it's this huge, like, honor. Cersei just wants him the fuck out of King's Landing, right? And, like, Pycelle even makes a comment. He's like, oh, the small council is getting smaller and smaller. And she looks at him. She's like, not fucking small enough, you motherfucker. So Cersei meets with the High Sparrow. And it's like, I have a fucking banger idea. Do you remember a few hundred years ago, we had the Faith Militant, an armed religious police force that could defend the faith in the streets? And he's like, yeah, but we outlawed it because it got kind of ugly. And she's like, let's unoutlaw it. And then I'll arm you. And
it's like,
the High Sparrow's like,
intriguing.
Yes. Yes. That sounds great.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
They arm the Faith Militant. They muster up the Faith Militant. They immediately start attacking brothels and shit. They're like the sex police, right?
Yeah.
Loras Tyrell is arrested for being gay.
Oh. That's sad.
Marjorie, his sister, is fucking enraged by this because they're really close, right? Yeah. And she like complains to Tommen. Tommen takes his King's Guard to the High Sparrow. They're sitting out there in front of the building. One of the High Sparrow's guys come down. It's like, yes, the king. And he's like, I want to talk to the High Sparrow. And he's like, he can't. And Tommen's like, why the fuck not?
Excuse me?
I'm the king. And he's like, he's praying. He can't see you right now. And there for a second, Tommen's like, I could kill everyone with the King's Guard.
I could kill every motherfucker in this room.
And then
no one could do anything about it.
Then he starts to realize how many Faith Militant there actually are. And it's a whole fucking army. And behind him is this crowd of people that have like kind of gathered up to watch what's going on. So he calls he calls the King's Guard off. And is like, I don't want to spill blood. And someone in the crowd calls Tommen a bastard. And a product of incest. And so Tommen meekly withdraws. He's like, we're going home. This, by the way, pisses Marjorie off even more. And so she gets on the phone to her grandmother, Olenna. It's like, you need to come back to the capital. Shit's going down. So, okay. Bronn and Jaime sail out of King's Landing. and they go to Dorne.
Okay. Doop, boop, boopity, boop, boop, boop. And they're here now.
Yep. So they land on Dorne. Oh, but on the way, by the way, they pass Tarth, which is where Brienne is from.
Yeah. And
it reminds Jaime of Brienne. And he's like, oh, I kind of liked her. So Jaime tells Bronn, because Bronn's like, by the way, if you ever see your brother again, give him my regards, because he's kind of, all right, we had good days together. It was a lot of fun. And Jaime's like, if I ever see Tyrion again, I'm going to fucking kill him. And he's like, that, your dad was a cunt, right? Like it's okay that he killed him.
Yeah.
So the morning after they land, a patrol notices their footprints in the sand, and they investigate and they find them. And there's a big fight, and they kill all of them. Jaime is useless in a sword fight, except for when you swing a sword at him and he blocks it with his metal hand and the sword gets stuck. And he's like, oh, and then stabs the guy, right? That's the only use he has in a sword. That one thing is all he can do. So they kill those guys and they put on their clothes. So Ilaria meets with a new group that we don't know yet called the Sand Snakes. They're going to be under Martells. These are the bastard daughters of Oberyn Martell.
Okay.
Only one of them is Ilaria's daughter, the young pretty one. They are viciously good fighters because Oberyn taught them how to fight, right? So their names are Obara, Nymeria, and Taim. So Ilaria tells them, she's like, Prince Doran isn't going to raise an army and attack to avenge Oberyn, and that offends me. So we're going to start the war by killing Marcella. And they also know that Jaime and Bronn are here, right? So on the Summer Sea near Volantis, which I guess is
south, yeah.
Where is the Summer Sea?
I think it's just south. It's not marked, but it would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, this probably is. You're probably right. Okay. Jorah is sailing with an unconscious Tyrion. And Tyrion wakes up and he's able to deduce who he is because he's got the bear sigil and shit. And he's like, oh, you're fucking Jorah Mormont. And he finds out that Jorah hopes to present Tyrion as a gift to get back in Daenerys' good graces. And Tyrion fucking laughs. And he's like, what the fuck are you laughing at? He's like, I was headed to see Daenerys anyway. Yeah. So fucking good job.
Thanks for saving me the trip.
At the Wall, or as my favorite Game of Thrones content creator Glidus calls it, the Walrus. Jon Snow has to do paperwork now because he's the Lord Commander.
He's the boss. And
he is sending ravens out to request recruits from the different high
hey,
houses.
Guess what? Yeah. Zombies are real.
Yeah. So, and he's like hanging out with Sam, who's like his assistant now, right? Yeah. And Melisandre shows up.
It's like, hey, you want to see some tits?
So Sam's like, I'll leave. And so he leaves. And Melisandre's like, you need to reconsider this thing with Stannis. And he's like, no, I have my vows. And she's like, well, what if I show you my tits? And she takes her robe off and shows her tits. And he's like, those are nice.
Those are pretty good tits, but I really don't think I can reconsider my vows.
But still no. And she's like, okay, hold on. What if I take your hand and put it on one of my tits? And he's like, oh, that's nice.
Oh, that
I'm not going to lie. Yeah, that's fucking nice.
That's a really good tit.
But also no. Because of his vows. And she's like, well, what about fucking Ygritte? And he's like, first of all,
she's kind of dead.
Yeah. Which lots of problems with that. But don't fucking bring her. Like, come on. Like, it's a little taboo. And they have this conversation, and at the end, Melisandre says, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," which was said to him by Ygritte in a private moment where no one else saw them. And
it's like, wait a minute.
And Jon's like, "Can we just go back to seeing your tits? Because like this is getting really spooky." All right. Stannis and Shireen have this really nice moment. Mm-hmm. Stannis apologizes for dragging her to the fucking end of the world and shit. And Shireen is like, I don't mind. Like, it's nice that you didn't leave me back at Dragonstone and I'm not alone and I get to hang out with you. And it's clear, it's like Stannis really loves his daughter.
And have a book club up here. It's great.
Right. Yeah, that she organized. Yeah. So he loves her so much, but he's just really awkward at showing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Again, like huge intelligence, strength, all those stats, charisma of like 2.
Yeah. Fucking brilliant military commander. Yeah. So he tells her the story about her grayscale that she got from a doll that someone gave them. And he was advised to banish her to Volantis with the Stonemen because there's an enclave there. Because when the disease progresses, you go mad and you're just crazy, right? And they're like lepers, kind of like insane lepers. Yeah. And they have a little colony near Volantis for them where they just kind of dump them off, you know? Mm-hmm. And it is also an extremely communicable disease. So like you get it very easily just from touching someone. Yeah. And they told me to take you to Volantis and as a baby and I called every fucking maester in the world and brought them to Dragonstone. And one of them was able to stop the disease. And I did that because you're my daughter and I had to save you. And it's this moment where it's like, you're like, Stannis, you son of a bitch. Like you're kind of a cool guy.
Yeah.
For now. So at Winterfell, Sansa visits the family crypt and finds herself in front of Lyanna Stark's statue. Mm-hmm. And Littlefinger shows up like out of the shadows. He's like, hello. And
it's like, why are you always like
this? Right. Why are you like this?
Can you possibly chill out just a little bit?
You know, this is why people don't like you. Yeah. This is why my mother didn't want to marry you. You're a fucking creep.
You're just so extra.
Yeah. Littlefinger tells Sansa the story about a tournament that happened years ago that changed the course of history everywhere, which was it was a bout between Barristan Selmy and Rhaegar Targaryen, the son of the Mad King. Mm-hmm. And Rhaegar won the fight and rode past his wife and rode up to Lyanna Stark and gave her his victory crown. And like everyone in the crowd's like, because he had a wife. It wasn't his fucking betrothed or his girlfriend. Yeah. He had a wife in front of God and everyone. Sorry, gods, the old gods and the new. Rides past her and gives the crown to Lyanna Stark. And then Littlefinger's like, and then he kidnapped her not far long after that, and Robert Rebellion started. That's how the whole fucking thing started.
Yeah.
And Sansa's like, okay, that's really interesting. Can you please leave me alone now? So Littlefinger's like, I'm going back to King's Landing. I've been summoned by Cersei. So I'm leaving you here alone with Ramsay.
Surely nothing can possibly go wrong.
So
you're safe here.
Yeah, everything will be fine. He's obviously a good guy. Except for when he's flaying people alive, which is a hobby of his and his psycho-ass girlfriend, Miranda. So Littlefinger explains his plan. He's like, Stannis has to attack soon to beat the winter. Because if he doesn't do it soon, winter's going to come and,
winter lasts like 3 fucking years.
Right. Stannis is the best commander Westeros has ever seen, and he outnumbers the Bolton men a whole bunch. He is going to win. And then he's going to make you Warden of the North. And then we are going to have shit the way we want it here. And Sansa's like, what if Stannis loses? And Littlefinger's like, well, then you will be in a position to take down the Boltons from the inside. Like, it's a win-win. Grabs her, kisses her full in the fucking mouth, and leaves. And she's like, oh, God. Okay, so a Marine, Dany is hanging out in the Great Pyramid, where she does all of her queening.
Yeah. Yes, Queen Slay.
Also, look at this fucking epic outfit she has, right?
Yeah.
Also, I need to make sure see, this is why I need to make sure that. God damn it. You saw me hit the spacebar, right?
Yeah. There it is. Back.
So what I was saying is I want to make sure that the picture is it's not hidden behind our like camera here.
Yeah.
This fucking Daenerys Targaryen has the best outfits in this entire show. They're all so good. So she's hanging out at the Great Pyramid, and Barristan Selmy talks to her about her brother Rhaegar, who Littlefinger and Sansa were just talking about. And he's like, believe it or not, Rhaegar fucking loved to sing. And she's like, really?
It's a little weird.
Like all of the stories that Viserys told me, her brother, her crazy ass brother, was that he was a fierce fighter and he's a strong man and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, the dude loved to sing. Huh. In fact, we would go and busk and he would just sing for the people of King's Landing. And we put a fucking money hat out just to see how much we could make. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we would give it to the next guy down the street that's doing his music. Or
that's kind of nice.
Yeah, or we'd go drink ourselves fucking stupid. But most of the time, he would give it to an orphanage or something. Huh. This is a man that kidnapped, raped, and killed Lyanna Stark, by the way.
We contain multitudes, I guess.
Yeah, a very complex man. So Dany is just shocked by this because this is not a side of Rhaegar that all she's heard of is what Viserys told her, but also this whole thing with Lyanna Stark, right? Yeah. And so she's like, you know what, Barris and Selmy, take the day off. Fucking great story. Thank you so much. Go out in the street and sing for some people. And Barris and Selmy is like, well, I don't want to kill them, so no, but thank you for the day off. I'll go and roam around a little bit. Hizdar shows up and is like, fighting pits? And she's like, no. Get the fuck out.
We don't do that.
First of all, knock. Second of all, stop visiting me at my house, please. So Barris and Selmy is walking around and hears screams. Mm-hmm. And he runs to see what's happening. And there's a large-scale attack from the Sons of the Harpy happening. And they're just indiscriminately murdering people. And Grey Worm finds him too. And they were lured into a hall. It's like a building. And then they are ambushed by a bunch of Sons of the Harpy, and they're outnumbered like 10 to 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are like a ton of these guys, right? Yeah. They fight, and at the end, every one of the sons, Barris and Selmy, cuts down so many of these guys. The dude, like, we've seen him in his role as advisor. He's a smart military mind. He does the advising very well, but like you kind of forget why he was Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. It's because he's a fucking badass, and he cuts down so many of these guys. And at the end of this fight, all of the Sons of the Harpy are dead. Grey Worm is seriously wounded, and Barris and Selmy is dead.
Oh,
having killed pretty much everyone, right? Yeah. Like, it hurts to see it, but you're like, that dude's a fucking badass. Him. Yeah, he does not go out like a bitch. Mm-hmm. So Daenerys is livid,
a little bit upset
because she liked Barris and Selmy a whole bunch. And so Dario Naharis is like, we need to pull everyone back to the main pyramid. Like, this is getting out of control. We'll use the pyramid as a base for operations. We'll take the city block by block. And Daenerys is like, no. Round up all the masters, including Hizdar. I'll meet you in the catacombs. And they're like, why? What's down in the catacombs? She's like, I'll just see you down there. So Daenerys introduces a group of masters to Rhaegal and Viserion. And she pushes one of the masters in front of them, and they roast him alive, and they tear him apart. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I had this brilliant idea. I think maybe I'll let my kids decide your innocence. If I push you in front of them, if they let you live, you're innocent. If not, you're fucking guilty, and then fuck you. And she walks up behind Hizdar and touches his back like she's going to push him. And he's like pissing himself, right? Mm-hmm. And she pulls her hand away and says, I don't want to overfeed him today, maybe tomorrow. And then walks away. Biggest fucking power move in the world, right?
I could murder you horribly.
Yes.
But I won't.
Yeah. So Grey Worm wakes up. He is recovering from his wounds. Mm-hmm. And Missandei is next to his bedside, very worried. And they talk about death, and he's like, I don't really fear death. I fear not seeing you ever again.
Oh.
It is really sweet, and they kiss.
Oh.
And you're like, good for those guys. Yeah, fucking in this crazy ass world, there's Grey Worm and Missandei, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So Daenerys decides to reopen the fighting pits, but only
why?
So there's this whole this whole theory about the fighting pits are the only thing that the slaves and the masters have in common, and that if you give them an activity that they can enjoy together.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's like, we're going to do this, but only there will be no slaves, only free men. Also, Hizdar, I know yesterday I said I might feed you to my dragons. I haven't ruled it out, but we're going to get married.
Oh.
And it's going to be a political marriage because he's one of the masters, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you and I are going to fix this. Like, we're going to get married and we're going to fix the whole thing. And he's like, all right. Yeah. By the way, her side piece Dario is like, I might just kill this man.
Yeah.
So at the wall, Sam. So we've talked about how Maester Aemon is blind, right?
I think so.
Yeah. It's not a huge detail that is super important, but Sam is reading letters to him that are coming in, and you find out that you find out what family he's from. He's a Targaryen, and he is Daenerys' great uncle.
Interesting.
But in fact, if I remember correctly, let me know in the comments if you're still watching, if you're really up on this. I seem to remember this being a fact, but I could be wrong. He was going to be king, but abdicated to be in the Night's Watch, and he
left for a role that was only slightly less likely to kill him.
Right? Yeah. And he makes this comment about how there's a Targaryen in the world all alone, and he can't help her because there are serious things happening here that people don't realize, and it's the work of his life. Like, this is what he has to do. So Jon shows up and he's like, Aemon, I need your advice on something. Sam, get the fuck out.
Sam has been getting the fuck out an awful lot this season.
Not really. Jon wouldn't say that. Not to Sam, they're buddies. He's like, I need your advice on something. It's an issue that will make half of the Night's Watch hate me. And Aemon's like, fuck him. Do what's right. And then he says, kill the boy, let the man be born. And Jon's like, all right.
Well,
so
I didn't even tell you what I was going to ask you, but okay.
Aemon's like, I don't fucking care. Doesn't matter. If you think it's right, if it's the right call, you're the Lord Commander. Commit. Balls deep or no balls at all.
Okay. All right.
So Jon meets with Tormund. And he's like, we're going to forge an alliance between the Night's Watch and the Free Folk. And Tormund's like, oh, what?
Good fucking luck.
Bold. But you understand, like, our people have been fighting each other for hundreds of years, right? And he's like, the Night King, like, they don't know who the Night King is yet, but he's like, winter's coming. Like, we need to do something about this. So his plan is to send Tormund north to rally the Free Folk. And then when they get back, he's going to let them pass through the gates. Tormund agrees. He's like, good. But I'm only going to do this if you come with me. And he's like, oh, by the way, all the remaining Free Folk are at Hardhome, which you might have seen on the map before.
He showed me an episode called Hard Home, in fact.
Yeah, that episode's coming up.
Like this season?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like next episode.
Good times.
I think. Hard Home, you can't see it because this tree bitch is like right in the way. But it's this peninsula thing up here, right? So, okay. So, Jon tells the Night Watch about his plan, right? And good news is that not half of them hate him.
Okay.
Everybody hates him. Like even his buddy Ed is mad.
Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Ollie's pissed off because the Free Folk murdered and probably almost certainly ate his parents, right? So Jon's like, I'm Lord Commander. I've made the decision. The discussion's over. We're going to go get the Free Folk. When I get back, let us through the fucking gate. And like, this is why. We can let them through, or they become soldiers for the Night King. And we end up fighting them anyway. So, like, wouldn't this be a little bit better? And it's a good call.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he's objectively correct, but
yes,
that's not good.
But lots of emotion, though, in this. Yeah. Also, Sam kind of discovers in here somewhere that he wants to be a maester.
Okay. Makes sense. He's not really good at fighting.
Yeah. There's this funny conversation. Sam and Stannis meet up for the first time, right? They're like two entirely opposite personalities, right? And Stannis is like, I heard you killed a White Walker. And Sam's like, I suppose I did.
Yeah, technically.
He's like, how the fuck did you do that? You fat fuck. And Sam's like, I had a dragon glass? Yeah. And Stannis is like, no shit. Dragon glass?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And he's like, where I'm from, Dragonstone has tons of natural dragon glass.
I was like, oh, no shit.
Sam's like, that's really interesting, but I have to go do shit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I will forget about this later when until it becomes relevant to the plot. So Stannis tells Davos, he's like, we are starting our march tomorrow morning. The morning comes and they leave for Winterfell.
Okay.
All right. In the north, Brienne and Pod are like camped outside of Winterfell.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. Look at this fucking doofus. I'll put him where everyone can see him. Look at this fucking doofus.
Like, he is doing his best.
He is such a sweetheart.
Which means he's going to die horribly, doesn't it?
He's one of the good ones. I'm not going to spoil it. So they're like camped outside of Winterfell.
Mm-hmm.
They find a Stark servant who's still loyal.
Okay.
And Brienne asks her to deliver a secret message to Sansa, which is, if you're in danger, light a candle in the highest window in the broken tower and we'll come and help you. So Miranda spends some time with Sansa and she takes her to the dog kennels where Theon is sleeping.
Oh. And
she does this to antagonize both of them because her name is Miranda and she's a huge bitch. So this visibly shakes Sansa because she didn't know he was there. There's a whole history there before he did the huge douchebag thing. Mm-hmm. So she's really bothered by it. So they have a family dinner, like Roose, like everybody except for these guys, and not Littlefinger because he's on his way back to King's Landing. So Ramsay makes Theon apologize to Sansa for killing her little brothers.
Okay.
Which, by the way, they know they're not dead, but Sansa doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? And so he's like, I'm sorry for killing Bran and Rickon. And Ramsay's like, great fucking idea. Theon, you should give Sansa away at her wedding. Wouldn't that be cute? And this entire time, Roose is like eating is like, fucking Ramsay, dude.
This fucking kid.
Yeah. But he's like the spoiled brat that Roose like won't correct in front of anyone. Yeah. So he's just like, he'll do what he does. So big news. Walda is pregnant with Roose's baby. And this is not okay with Ramsay. Because if it's a boy, even though he's Ramsay Bolton now, that is a true-born son of the Warden of the North, which means his claim would be stronger, right? Yeah. And so Ramsay's like, oh, I do not enjoy that.
We gotta kill this bitch.
Yeah. So Roose tells Ramsay, he's like, listen, Stannis is on the way. It's going to be your job to defeat them. Don't fucking fail me. And he's like, I got it.
Gotcha.
I got it, Dad. All right, Old Valyria. You might remember them constantly talking about Old Valyria.
The Valyrians from Old Valyria.
Yeah, the Valyrians from Old Valyria. Yeah, because you know what they're most proud of, that they're from Old Valyria.
Yeah.
And I'm not really.
It's further south, I think.
Is it?
Valyria.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So these are all ruins down here. So I guess his plan is to go like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
So it's like Italy a little bit, where like the city had like waterways and shit.
Yeah.
And so they're sailing through, and they decide to go through Valyria as a shortcut, which everyone that knows about sailing is don't ever go through Valyria. But Jorah's like, don't tell me what the fuck to do. Mm-hmm. So they go through. This is where that enclave of stonemen are. And they are immediately attacked by stonemen.
Yeah.
They lose their boat. They wash up on the shore somewhere. Jorah fucking takes his sleeve down. He's got grayscale.
Well, fuck.
Of course he does. But he hides it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Of course he does.
Arya is continuing her training with the Faceless Men.
She is becoming no one.
She's sweeping the floor. That's pretty much what she's doing. Well, actually, no, because she impressed. No, that hasn't happened yet. So she's doing her cleaning, and now she's kind of graduated to cleaning bodies.
Okay.
So they drink from the fountain. They fall over dead. She scrubs them up, right? And it's very ritualistic.
Yeah.
It's done with a lot of dignity, and she has no idea why, though. She's like, what happens to them after this? I would like to know.
Yeah. And
so the waif is just general. You might be wondering why she called the waif. I have no idea why. So she's just generally a bitch to Arya. And Arya's like, I want to play the game of faces, which is the game that she was playing with her before, which is you tell a story and you get whipped when you lie. Mm-hmm. Right. And Arya's like, I want to be the one whipping. And the waif is like, fine. And so the waif gives her origin story, this elaborate story about where she came from and all this other stuff. And Arya buys all of it. She's like, no shit. And the waif just rolls her eyes and is like, you are not ready to play this game. So Jack and Hagar tests her. And she, like, Arya tells a story about her life. And she'd be like, I'm, Arya Stark, blah, 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 I grew up in Winterfell. I really like to wear pretty dresses. Whip. Just fucking right immediately. And she's like, oh, and I had a dire wolf named Summer. Whip, right? And Jack and Hagar sniffs out every single lie. Like, doesn't matter how minute it is. Somehow he is able to tell, right? Yeah. Somehow the subject of the Hound comes up. And she says, I fucking hate the Hound. And he smacks her.
Oh.
And she's like, stop hitting me with sticks, please. So a man brings his terminally ill daughter to the House of Faces to accept the gift, which is the poison from the girl's really scared to do it. She is terminally ill. Arya tells her a story about how she is also sick. And pretty much like, oh, we'll do it together. And the girl drinks from the fountain and dies. And Jack and Hagar is like, damn.
Okay.
Good job.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Do you want to see what happens to the bodies after you wash them? And she's like,
oh my God, yes.
Please. So he shows her to the Hall of Faces, which is an underground lair. Mm-hmm. Fucking giant cavernous room with a bunch of human faces all over the place. And he's like, this is what happens after you wash the bodies. We take their faces off. That's a face-off joke, if anyone.
Remove the face, put it on the wall.
If you're a face-off fan and you understood the face-off reference I just made, please put it in the comments. So Arya says, she's like, I'm not ready to become no one, but I'm ready to become someone else. And Jack and Hagar is like, I can work with that. Yeah. Slaver's Bay. Tyrion and Jorah continue their journey on foot now to Meereen. These poor guys. So I think they ended up washing up like over here somewhere, or maybe, I don't know. I do not love this tendency to do that. They end up like over here somewhere. Maybe it's over here. I don't know. Doesn't matter. They're on foot. They're going to Meereen. Jorah asks why Tyrion was going to Daenerys in the first place. And Tyrion's like, well, my life was going pretty well. And then someone murdered my nephew. I was falsely accused of the crime. I was found guilty by my father in a rigged court that my father rigged. He sentenced me to death, and then he fucked the love of my life, and then I shot him in the heart with a crossbow. And Jorah's like, I get that.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would do too. Yeah, that seems totally fair. And so Tyrion tells Jorah about how he met his father in season 1. When he goes to the wall, he meets J.R. Mormont.
Yeah.
And he tells Jorah that his father died beyond the wall. And Jorah just kind of processes it silently. And so Jorah tells, so he's like, so Tyrion's like, so what's the deal with Daenerys? Why are you obsessed with her? And he's like, well, I was going along with my life. I found Daenerys Stormborn. Her husband died. They had a funeral pyre. She walked into it and came out with 3 baby dragons.
Huh.
And Tyrion's like, if you're not going to be serious, then why the fuck are we doing this?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's what fucking happened. And he's like, yeah,
there's
okay,
actually baby dragons out there. Like there's charred sheep corpses to prove it.
But Tyrion's like not buying it. So they're captured by slavers because of course they are.
Of course.
And they're sold to the Fighting Pits and Marine.
Oh.
So
I thought there weren't supposed to be slaves.
I don't think there are supposed to be, and I'm not sure. There might be an explanation for that. I just don't know it off the top of my head. If you know, put it in the comments. So they're going to Marine. This is not ideal, but they are going in the right direction.
Yes.
So their situation has minutely improved. So in the Water Gardens of Dorne, that's my partner John just got home.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime and Bronn have infiltrated the Water Gardens wearing Martell uniforms.
Yeah.
Alaria and the Sand Snakes are already there. And she's like, okay, go kidnap Marcella. So Bronn is like, okay, so what do we do when we find Marcella? And Jaime's like, I have no idea. We'll improvise. And Bronn's like, for the record, this is a bad plan. So they find Marcella just walking around with her betrothed, Prince Trystane.
Okay.
Who is this fucking tall glass of water.
Okay.
Right here. The dude is very pretty.
Good for him.
Yeah. And Jaime and Bronn just walk up to him. Like they're making out and shit.
Yeah.
And then Marcel's like, Uncle Jaime? What the fuck? Like, what are you why are you dressed like that?
Why are you here?
Yeah. And Jaime's like, come with me. And Tristan's like, no. And he draws his sword. He's like, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? And he's like, this is Bronn of the Blackwater. And Bronn's like, I'm going to fucking kill you, kid. And punches him in the face. The Sand Snakes are like, you know what? This is a great moment to attack.
Yeah.
And so they attack.
Whee!
So there's a whole duel between Bronn and Jaime and the Sand Snakes. One of them has a whip, and it's really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
Bronn is cut, I think, by like the spear. The guards show up and arrest everyone, right? So hold on to that thread. In King's Landing, Cersei and Littlefinger meet. So Littlefinger is already back home. He teleportated back. So he sees right through the Faith Militant ruse from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And Cersei's like, you are way too smart for any of this. So Littlefinger is like, oh no, Sansa married Ramsay Bolton. We have to take an army north and take Winterfell.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, so our army, which is like the Lannister army, which is under Kevin Lannister's control, he's never gonna go for that. And so Littlefinger's like, let me take the Knights of the Vale then. And then like, I'll take it back. You make me Warden of the North. And Cersei's like, maybe.
Perhaps.
I'll give you a solid maybe. All right. Olenna has returned back to King's Landing.
Oh, good. I'm sure this will go very well for the Lannisters.
She's pissed, right? Her her grandson Loras, the heir to Highgarden, is in prison. She meets with Cersei, and Cersei's like, "Oh no, the Faith Militant! How could they?" And Olenna's like, "Shut the fuck up! Like, I know you're behind this, so just shut the fuck up." So the High Sparrow interrogates Loras, and he's like, "Are you gay?" And Loras is like, "No." And he's like, "Okay." And then they interrogate Marjorie, and they're like, "Is he gay?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, we're gonna interrogate Oliver." Oliver, is he gay? And he's like, yes, he's gay as fuck. In fact, I have first penis knowledge.
Yes.
He's gay. And so Marjorie is arrested for giving false testimony. So now they're both in prison.
I'm assuming old lady Olenna is not very happy about
She's losing her shit. Tommen is paralyzed with indecision because he's like 14. Yeah. He has no idea what to do. And Cersei is just sitting back having the time of her life, right?
Just sipping her tea.
Yep. So in Winterfell, it's time for Sansa's wedding. And I know in this world, when you hear wedding, you start to get real nervous.
Yep.
So Miranda, before the wedding, Miranda tells Sansa about all the girls that came before Sansa. And she's like, pretty much this is what happens. Ramsay finds a girl. She ends up boring him at one point or another, and then he hideously tortures and kills them. So have fun with your marriage. And Sansa, who at this point in her life is starting to like, she's still a pretty innocent, clueless girl, but she's starting to toughen up a little bit. Says, I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell. I won't be intimidated by some bitch named Miranda, so get the fuck out. They have their wedding. Theon gives her away. It should be this joyous occasion, but it's not. Later that night, and I can't say the R word because YouTube gets really sensitive about it, but Ramsay viciously assaults her and makes Theon watch.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. Okay. So Jon leaves with Tormund to go to Hardhome. And Sam sends him with like a bag of dragonglass weapons. Master Aemon, whose health has been declining for a while, he's really old. Yeah. His health has taken a turn for the worst, and he dies of natural causes. Yeah. Which, in the world of Game of Thrones,
not the worst way to go.
Not only natural causes, but old.
Yeah.
Like the dude did okay by himself. Like I think you can count on one hand how many of these characters die of natural causes.
So we're down to one Targaryen. Wink.
Right. Well, I'll delete him the next time we're over there for a substantial period of time. So sometime after, Gilly is attacked by a few of the men of the Night's Watch. Because remember, most of them are rapers and thieves. Yeah. Sam tries to defend her, but gets the shit kicked out of him. And then Ghost shows up. And so like they all know Jon's wolf, and they're like,
okay, yep. All right, we're done.
Loud and clear. We'll leave now. Gilly tends to Sam's injuries and is so turned on by his willingness to risk his life for her, jumps right up on it and starts riding it.
All right.
And Sam loses his virginity.
Good for Sam.
Yeah, it's like, Sam, you needed that. Yeah. Like, good for you, Sam. Yeah. So in the north, Sansa is a prisoner now in her own home. She's locked away in her room. Ramsay comes to her every night. She begs Theon for help. Theon keeps saying, it's not Theon, it's Reek. Like, you don't understand what's happening here. Like, there's nothing you can do. And she tells him about the candle message. She gives him the candle. She's like, go up to the broken tower, light this, and help will come. He takes the candle, goes straight to Ramsay, and tells him everything. So Ramsay summons Sansa, and he waxes poetic about how someday he's going to be the Warden of the North. And Sansa's like, well, actually, Walda's pregnant, and if that's a boy, your claim will be threatened. And he gets real irritated by this, and then shows her what he brought her to show her, which is the old servant woman who he flayed alive on a cross. Yeah.
Always a charmer, old Ramsay.
Yes. So Stannis and troops make camp in a really bad snowstorm. They've lost a ton of their horses. Some of the sellswords that they hired have deserted.
Mm-hmm.
Davos wants to go back to Castle Black. We'll move these guys a little further south. Davos is like, we need to go back to Castle Black. And Stannis is like, winter's going to last for like 200 years. So like we will get mail there. That's how long we will be there. We'll start getting mail there. So we can't. Only way is forward. So he talks to Melisandre, asking if she's sure about her visions about him, winning. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure. But just to make extra sure, let's sacrifice Shireen.
What?
And Stannis is like, fuck you, get out of my tent. Yeah.
No.
And kicks her out. Get out of here. I've had enough of you tonight, you crazy fucking bitch. Okay. The Water Gardens. Marcella, who is also very sweet. It turns out that Joffrey was the only cunt in this, out of the kids, right? Mm-hmm. Is madly in love with Trystane. They're madly in love with each other, which was not necessarily supposed to happen. Because you might remember that Tyrion set up this as a political thing.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
They're both the same age. They're both very attractive.
Teenagers will be teenagers.
So she's like, I'm not leaving to go to King's Landing because of Trystane. We're going to get married. I love him. Don't tell me what to do. Bronn is in jail, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he got cut by one of those daggers. And in an adjoining cell, the sand snakes are like, pestering him. Mm-hmm. And he starts to exhibit symptoms. And they're like, oh, you that's the long farewell, which is like the poison that takes a while, but then will kill you. And there's only one antidote. And like one of the sand snakes like gives it and then like shows him her tit because she really likes to show tits too.
Yeah.
So in King's Landing, Olenna meets with a High Sparrow, and it's fucking epic. And she tries to figure out, she's like, okay, you're religious, so you're probably a pervert.
Yeah.
How do I pay you off? And it turns out the High Sparrow is like incorruptible.
Huh.
There is no price.
Really?
The dude is committed.
Good for him, I guess.
This is him as the High Sparrow. You'll notice that he's wearing this rough-hewn
cheap ass robe.
Right. He's always dirty. He doesn't have special quarters or anything. He's doing it because he believes, right? And Olenna's like, I don't understand that. Like, your God is not real. Mm-hmm. Why? Why would you do that? And he's like, well, I think he is real. Tommen is freaking out about Marjorie being in prison. Mm-hmm. And he's like ready to go to war for her, right? He's like, every moment she's in prison,
it's a moment that I'm not having sex.
I'm not having sex in my room with her. So we need to fix this right now. And he complains to his mom, Cersei, and she's like, I'll talk to the High Sparrow and get Marjorie freed.
How much longer do we have?
However long we need.
I meant on your notes.
A couple pages.
Ah, okay.
Olenna and Littlefinger have a tense conversation. And you find out that they conspired together to kill Joffrey.
Okay, good for them.
Yep. And she's like, listen, if my house falls, the future of Highgarden falls, I'll have no reason to keep that fucking secret, and you're going down with me. And Littlefinger's like, okay, good points. Mm-hmm. I have some interesting information for you about Cersei and Lancel. Huh. So Cersei goes to talk to the High Sparrow. Mm-hmm. And visits Marjorie in her cell and gloats.
Of course.
It's like, oh, look at you in your fucking cell. Maybe you won't joke about fucking my teenage son right in front of me. She meets with the High Sparrow.
Marjorie's like, no, seriously, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but really, I would really like to get back to that. So she meets with the High Sparrow. She's very smug. She's very proud of the work that she's done. Mm-hmm. And the High Sparrow's like, did you fuck Lancelot Lannister? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, that's what we heard. You're under arrest. And they arrest Cersei, and she's in prison now. So in Marine, Jorah and Tyrion are sold to the same minor fighting pit that Daenerys happens to be visiting that day. So they have like a circuit of minor fights, and then there's the big event.
Yeah.
And it's like this kind of broken down, like it's not a very nice arena.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to, it's like Little League, and then you go see like a you know. So Daenerys is there for appearances. She watches as a mysterious figure wins the fight, and he takes his helmet off, and it's Jorah.
She's like, what the fuck?
She's like, motherfucker, I exiled you, arrest that man. But before they can, he says, I have a gift for you. And Tyrion walks out. And Daenerys is like, oh, what?
Okay.
I did not expect this. Okay. So Daenerys takes Tyrion to the throne room and is like, why the fuck did you come all this way to see me? And he's like, I heard a rumor from Varys about a girl that, with no help, acquired a barbarian horde, an organized army, conquered 3 cities, freed their slaves, and has 3 dragons. And I thought, that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I don't fight well. My big gift is my intellect and my political experience. And it if you'll have me, not behead me, and if I think you are worthy, I will advise you. And Daenerys considers killing him for a second, but then decides not to, and asks, she's like, well, advise me then, what should I do with Jorah? And he's like, listen, Jorah's devoted. He's in love with you. Let's not fuck around. The man's in love with you. But what he did, like, you were right to be upset. So you don't kill those who are devoted to you. You should re-exile him. And so Jorah gets exiled again, gets kicked out, returns to the fighting pit boss, and volunteers his service so he can fight in the big tourney for the queen. Daenerys decides to keep Tyrion as her advisor, but demands that he gets sober.
Okay.
And they start talking about the great houses, right? And Daenerys talks about how the great houses are like spokes on a wheel that just run over the common people. And Tyrion's like, I kind of dreamed of a day where that wheel was stopped. And Daenerys is like, I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to fucking obliterate it. Like, that's what you're coming here to do with me, by the way. Just so that there are no questions later.
So we're under no illusions here.
We are upsetting the established order, and we're going to do it with dragons. You in? He's like, yeah, I think I am.
Oh, yeah.
So Arya's been training with the Faceless Men. This has been going on for a while now. And she's convinced Jack and Hagar that she's ready for her first assignment.
Okay.
And so he's like, all right, you're going to adopt this persona called Lana. And you're going to go down to the docks as a girl that sells oysters, clams, and cockles. And you're going to find this guy that is pretty much running this insurance scam that leads to people getting fucked over a bunch.
Yeah.
And you're going to put this poison in his oyster. And yeah. And Arya's like, yes. First job. As soon as she fucking leaves, the wife's like, she's going to fail. Fucking bitch. Okay. We have to meet a new character.
Okay.
Septa Ulena, who is really fun. Look at that face. So her job is to go demand confessions.
Okay.
So she go into Cersei's cell, offer her water. When she goes to take it away, and says, confess. And Cersei is defiant, violently defiant. Qyburn visits her in jail. He's like, you've been charged with treason and incest and Robert's murder. And she's like,
I only did one of those.
Yeah. Well, no, she did all of them.
Huh.
So Kevin, her uncle, has been summoned to be Hand of the King. Tommen is reclusive. He hasn't left his room. And he's like, but the work continues on our secret little project. And she's like, okay. Sansa in Winterfell confronts Theon about his betrayal. And Theon is like, Theon tried to escape. He tortured him until there was no Theon left. And Sansa's like, after what you've done, good. Like, you fucking deserve it. He accidentally lets slip that her brothers are not dead. And she's like, Theon, where the fuck are they? And he's like, I've said too much. Roose and Ramsay discuss, because like Stannis is on his way. And Ramsay has a plan. He's like, give me 20 good men and I'll take care of this. So at the Wall, Sam and Ollie talk about Jon's alliance with the Free Folk. And Ollie doesn't like it because, his parents got
Yeah.
Okay, so at Hardhome, Jon and Tormund arrive. So I couldn't find a good map of Hardhome, but it turns out that someone made it in Minecraft.
Oh, okay.
And I was pleased with the accuracy of it. So I was like, okay. So let's put a couple of people on here. We need Jon.
He who knows nothing.
Yep. Tormund's here.
I like that expression on his face. Just like, man, really?
So most of these are going to get updated pictures, by the way, for the next season, because a lot of these guys change quite a bit because of what happens.
Or just because they change actors.
Only one changes actors.
Huh.
So it's Tormund. Ed came with them. He's probably in the random folder.
Nope.
Yeah, he's up here. I didn't name him. Ed's with them. So they pull up, right? And they meet with the Lord of Bones.
Giggity?
Because he wears bones.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Now, Jon already knows this guy from when he was a spy.
Yeah.
So he meets with them, right? And the Lord of Bones insults Tormund, and he's like, I didn't know that you were sucking this crow's dick. And Tormund grabs the nearest club and beats him to death. So that guy's dead.
I'm glad you went to the trouble of getting a picture for this guy.
I kind of forgot he died immediately. So Lord of Bones is dead. Okay, so Jon's brought before the Wilding Elders, including One. Who is another giant.
Love a good giant.
It's worth noticing, or is worth mentioning, that these giants aren't like Hagrid giants. They're like 30. They're like the size of my house. They're like as tall as my house, right? They're fucking huge. So Jon admits to killing Mance Raider, but he's like, it was a mercy killing. Tormund vouches for him, and he proposes his plan. Some are convinced, some aren't. But they decide they're going to start loading up the boats. So the way this works is
they do have fucking. They could have just gone around the wall this entire time.
Oh, these aren't their boats. Sorry, I should have speculated. I should have specified. Jon borrowed these from Stannis. Yeah, that's my bad. Yeah. So the way this works is that they have the little boats and they ferry
boats.
Yeah.
And...
Okay. So they start loading people up. There are 5,000 free folk up here. A lot of them live in this area and a lot of them live out here, right? And this is a gate.
Yeah.
So they're getting people on boats, and suddenly every fucking dog in Hardhome starts barking. And they look up, and on the mountain pass is this apocalyptic fucking snowstorm coming. And it's the White Walkers.
That's bad.
Yeah. So the way this is presented is so creepy, because like Jon's like in this building here, or sorry, Jon's over here, like next to the gate. One and Ed are hanging out, and they hear a disturbance right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys orders the gate to close. So people are trying to like, cause like something is back there that's freaking everyone out and they're trying to get in, but they close the gates on them. And there's a bunch of screaming and then it just stops. And then whites start crawling over the fence, like the wall, and breaking through the gate and shit. And it just evolves into this free-for-all fight, right? These fucking whites are throwing themselves off the mountain, landing and just picking themselves back up and running at them. Like it's just fucking crazy. Yeah. So the Night's Watch and the Free Folk are fighting together, by the way, which is kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Ed and 1-1 are trapped in this building, and it catches fire. They lose the dragon glass weapons. Up on the ridge, Jon notices the White Walker generals and the Night King is just watching all this unfold, right? Yeah. So Jon gets to the town hall to help, and a White Walker appears to fight. One of the guys that tries to fight him. So the White Walker has this fucking nasty ass ice crystal like spear. Like someone tries to swing a sword at him, and when the spear hits it, just shatters like glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem because they don't know where the dragon glass is, and that's the only way to kill a fucking White Walker, right? So Jon is attacked by the White Walker. And he doesn't have dragon glass. The best he has is long claw, the Valyrian steel sword that JR gave him.
Yeah.
He goes to block, expecting his fucking sword to shatter, and it doesn't.
Huh.
It just blocks it. And the White Walker is like, what the fuck? And Jon takes advantage of the moment, hits him with a sword, and he just bursts into ice. And so we learn that Valyrian steel can also kill White Walkers.
Good to know.
Which is, it's stuff they didn't know. There's mass chaos everywhere. Everyone's running to the boats. It's like that fucking scene from Titanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jon and these guys make it out on like the last boat. And the Night King shows up, stepping over all the dead free folk. All of the whites are just standing on this coast staring at them. Walks out on the dock, puts his arms out, raises up all the dead free folk, and they without any of them making a fucking sound, stare at them as they travel back to their boats.
That seems bad.
It is very bad, and since you've seen the episode, bone chilling. Like it's probably the most famous scene from this show that they show in all the promotional materials and stuff. All right, we're almost done. So at the wall, Jon, Tormund, and the surviving free folk come back. They did not save nearly as many of them as they needed. And for a second, Alistair Thorne's up here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he might not open the gate for him. And he has this, you can see this internal struggle. Like, these are our sworn enemies, but that's my Lord Commander. Open the gate.
I hate his fucking guts, but he's my Lord Commander.
Yep. So they give the order to open the gate, and the free folk are welcome in unmolested.
Mm-hmm.
Jon and Sam reunite, and Jon's upset that they lost so many people, and Sam's like, every one of these people, he's pointing them as they're going by, like, they owe their lives to you. And like, if you had done nothing, all of these people would be dead. So maybe not the consolation you need.
Take the wins where you can get them.
So Ramsay leads the secret attack with 20 guys, burns all of Stannis' food, destroys all of his siege weapons, and Stannis is now properly, absolutely fucked.
That's not very good.
He orders Davos to go back to Castle Black for supplies. And Davos is like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm your hand, like, because Davos is Stannis' hand of the king, right? And he's like, do you need me to like do a political thing, or I don't understand? And he's like, I just need you, just do what I say. I need you to go. And it doesn't make sense because Stannis knows what he's about to do, and he doesn't want Davos to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So Davos goes back to Castle Black, or is on his way to Castle Black. Before he leaves, he says goodbye to the Princess Shireen and gives her a wooden stag that he like carved for her or whatever. Stannis visits and has another conversation with Shireen, and like he's really visibly shaken, and he speaks really kindly to his daughter. Shireen spoils a big part of House of the Dragon because she's reading a book about Aegon's conquest. And Stannis has one of those "I know what I need to do" moments.
But don't have the strength to do it.
And Shireen tells him that she's like, "I want to help you do whatever you need," you know. And Stannis hugs her and whispers, "Forgive me," and he leaves. And later, when Shireen comes out of her tent, her tent's surrounded by soldiers, and she's like, "Where's my dad?" And they don't answer. And they take her to a pyre, and Melisandre is standing next to it. And she knows what's about to happen. She screams for her parents. They put her up on the pyre and they burn her to death. While this is happening, Selyse finally has a moment where she connects with her daughter. And I don't know if it's motherly instinct, like is going to go save her, but the soldiers hold her back. And so Shireen dies, fucking burned at the stake. And
Stannis.
Yeah.
My God.
He watches it happen.
Come on, man.
It's fucking disgusting. So Jaime meets with Doran, Trystane. Basically, they're like, okay, Marcella, you won't come back without Trystane, so why don't we just have Trystane come with us? And she's like, oh, that's great.
I didn't know we could do that.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and Doran is like, great, peace. And Ilaria is like, it's no. So, by the way, Doran's in a wheelchair. He can't walk, right? Yeah. And Ilaria says, it's no wonder you can't stand. You have no fucking spine. And Doran's like, you ever talk to me like that again, I'll have you fucking killed. And she begs for forgiveness. And he's like, well, I don't believe in third chances. So you cross me, I'm going to have you killed. Yeah. Arya is disguised as Lana, and she's getting some intel on this guy.
Okay.
On the docks. And off of a boat that just sailed into Bravos steps Mace Tyrell and Meryn Trant.
Huh.
And Arya sees Meryn Trant.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Immediately abandons her mission and follows Meryn Trant instead. So she follows him to a brothel. It turns out he's a pedophile, by the way. They have the scene where they're showing him the goods and they're like, well, how do you like this girl? And he's like, younger. And so they bring her a younger girl and he's like, younger. And they bring her like a younger girl, still legal. Mm-hmm. And he's like, younger. Like, read between the fucking lines. And they bring him an underage girl and he's like, you'll have a fresh one ready for me tomorrow. And the brothel owner's like, ugh, this is Bravos, you sick motherfucker. Yeah. We don't do that here. So Arya returns back to the house as Black and White, and Jaqen asks her how it went with the guy she's supposed to be killing. Mm-hmm. And she lies. And she was like, he didn't want oysters today. I'll go back tomorrow and do it. And Jaqen knows she's lying, but doesn't say anything. In Marine, the big tourney is about to start. And it's a big, nice fucking arena. Yeah. Right? Hizdar and Dario Naharis are measuring dicks and like trying to insult each other. It's just the whole thing is hilarious. All the fighters go out. Dany claps her hands and it starts, right? Mm-hmm. So the fighters fight and one of the fighters is Jorah. And Daenerys is like, motherfucker, like I
banished you twice. Take like, a fucking hint.
What in the world? So he's involved in a 3-man free-for-all. It's Jorah, a Bravosi water dancer, and a Dothraki dude with a big fucking axe, right? Mm-hmm. Jorah barely wins, but he takes damage, like a lot of damage. So he's more or less waiting for Daenerys to give him the, like it's like in the Gladiator or whatever. Yeah. And she's looking at him like, I might have you killed. And Jorah's looking at her and something changes on his face. And he grabs the nearest spear and he just throws it at Daenerys. Goes past her head and impales a son of the Harpy right behind her with like a fucking knife.
Oh.
And they start to look around, and it's like the reverse Jedi in episode 2, where like they all start appearing, but they're sons of the Harpy, and they just start indiscriminately killing everybody. Which is Hizar is killed.
Oh.
Fucking stabbed to death. So Jorah and Dario evacuate Dany to the middle of the arena. This really is like episode 2, actually. All the exits are blocked. They're forced into the center. They're surrounded by the Sons of the Harpy. Fucking Dany closes her eyes and prepares for death. There is nowhere to go. And in the distance, she hears a fucking screech, and it's Drogon. Drogon flies in, fucking lands, starts roasting people alive, right? Like he's roasting people. One guy tries to run away. And he's like, oh, that looks tasty, and just fucking grabs him, you know? And the Sons of the Harpy are like, is that a fucking dragon? What the fuck? So they regroup enough to attack him with spears, and it kind of works. So he takes a couple spears to the shoulders and stuff. Dany climbs up on his back and tells him to fly. And not only does she escape, but becomes the first Targaryen dragon rider in over a century. First time any of the dragons are ridden or anything. In the north, as a result of what happened with Shireen and everything, half of Stannis' men have deserted. They're just like,
fuck it.
Out.
I'm out.
Nope, none of this. So they're taking in the morning, they're taking stock, right? And there's this one poor guy whose job is to bring all the bad news to Stannis. And he's like, I've got bad news. And he's like, what? And he's like, half of our people are gone. We're fucked. And then this other guy is like, oh, we have bad news. And Stannis is like, what? And he's like, your wife hung herself in the forest. And he's like, well, okay then.
At least it can't possibly get any worse.
Yep. And then the next guy comes up. He's like, I've got bad news.
And it's like, motherfucker.
And he's like, what? He's like, Melisandre was seen this morning leaving on a horse.
What the fuck?
And has just deserted Stannis. So it was just Stannis and like a few hundred men, right? And he's like, we're going to Winterfell.
We're doing this.
Only way forward. So they attack Winterfell. Ramsay is waiting with an organized army, and Stannis is easily beaten. Stannis fights in the nearby woods. He's exhausted and wounded, and he fucking sits up against a tree. Brienne, by the way, who's waiting for this candle to be lit, hears about Stannis' attack. And remember that when Renly was killed, he was killed by a smoke monster with Stannis' face. So she's like, I would like to speak to him, actually. And she has this moment where she's like, I have my oath to Sansa Stark, or I can go after Stannis. I'm going to go after Stannis. She and Pod leave. And just seconds later, the candle lights in the thing, right?
Of course.
So Sansa escapes the room where she just lit the candle, and is immediately caught by Miranda.
Oh,
who's holding her by the bow point, right? And Reek is there with her. And she's like, oh, I'm going to tell Ramsay, and he's going to cut you up except for the parts he needs to make a baby, and I'm going to watch, and it's going to be gross. But fun for me because I'm named Miranda, and that's what happens. Theon just finally breaks, and he does a Darth Vader and throws her over the side.
No!
Throws her off the rampart into the courtyard. Fucking splat. Miranda's dead.
Good job, Reek. Theon, whatever.
On cue, the doors open. The gate opens, and Ramsay rides in and sees Miranda, looks up and sees Theon, and is like, what?
What?
Theon grabs Sansa. They turn around to the non-castle side of Winterfell, where there's a bunch of snow. And he's like, the only way we're getting out of this is if we jump. And so they grab hands and they jump. And you don't exactly see what happens. So Brienne finds Stannis leaning up against his tree, who's just like, He's like, his whole demeanor is like, man, this has been a shit day. Just really, really terrible. And Brienne's like, I'm Brienne of Tarth. I was I was a member of Renly's, your brother Renly's Kingsguard.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you in the form of a smoke monster fucking stab him in the back. And Stannis is like, yeah, I've done some pretty shitty stuff. I'm not even going to tell you what I did last night. Like, it's been a bad day.
Yeah.
And Brienne pulls out her sword and says, in the name of Renly, blah, 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 I sentence you to death. And she kills him. Now, this happens off screen, which in Game of Thrones land is like,
maybe.
Yeah, but
he's
one of them that, like, he has off screen death, but he actually dies. Okay. So Meryn Trant is getting ready to get freaky at the brothel the next day with some kids, and they have 3 girls lined up in front of him, and he goes down the line and hits each one of them with a stick, and he gets to the end girl, and he hits her, and she doesn't flinch, and he's like, "Oh, okay, a challenge. I think this is the one that I want." So they dismiss both the other girls, and he hits her again, and she doesn't flinch, and he hits her like really hard in the stomach, and she falls over, and she gets up and she brushes the hair out of her face, and she pulls her face off, and it's Arya Stark. And she stabs him in both eyes, and she gags him with a rag and says, you were the first person on my list, by the way, for killing Serial Pharrell. And I've gotten a few others on the list. And the many-faced god has stolen a few for himself. But I'll tell you what, I'm really glad that he left me you. And he's no fucking eyes. Like, she stabbed him a bunch in the chest, too. And she's like, do you know who I am? And he's just like, no, I don't have eyes. And she's like, I'm Arya Stark. And you're nobody. You're nothing. And she slits his throat. And Meryn Trant is fucking dead. Cross that name right off the fucking list. Yeah. She returns to the House of Black and White.
Mm-hmm.
She puts the face back up that she borrowed.
Yep.
She turns around, and Jack and Hagar and the waif are standing there.
Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yep.
You had one job.
The waif
killed the wrong guy.
Yeah. The waif grabs her from behind, and Jaqen pulls out a vial of poison, and she thinks that he's gonna make her drink it, and then he drinks it, and he collapses. And Arya screams for him to stay alive because she really liked Jack and Hagar. Yeah. They have a little bit of a history. She really liked him, and she's like, throttling him, like screaming.
Fuck,
yeah. And she hears Jaqen's voice behind her. It says he was no one. And she turns around, and where the waif was standing, that's just Jack and Hagar.
What the fuck?
And she looks down at the body, and it was like, what? And so she starts taking faces off, just one after the other, different faces. And then she gets to her own face. And when she gets to her own face, she starts to lose her sight, and her eyes turn opaque, and she screams for help, and she's completely blind. Which, by the way, the whole thing here is that the many-faced god, she took a life from the many-faced god that they didn't command. So there was a big sin.
Yeah.
So in Meereen, Daenerys is gone and no one knows where she is. They're like, we saw Drogon taking her north. After that, I don't know.
That's all we know.
So Dario and Jorah decide to go find her. And they're going to leave Grey Worm to command the Unsullied in Meereen. Mm-hmm. And Tyrion is going to stay and deal with politics, right? And so also Varys finally catches up. He finally gets to Meereen. God damn it. This motherfucking thing.
What happens if you hit lock?
I don't know.
There. Just hit lock.
Hopefully I can... Okay. So he finally shows up. catches up to Tyrion. He's like, how did you get here so fucking fast? Where did you go? We were in the brothel and you just fucking disappeared. And he's like, well, I'm here. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. And he's like, oh, Daenerys is gone. And he's like, where'd she go? And he's like, she fucking disappeared.
Rode a dragon somewhere.
We're trying to find her. And he's like, well, okay, I guess I'll help. God, you would lose Daenerys Targaryen. So in the Dothraki Sea, Drogon and Daenerys sit on top of this hill. Mm-hmm. Drogon is pretty seriously wounded, but not fatally wounded.
Yeah, he'll be okay.
Yeah. And she's like, fly. And he's like, no, I'm going to lay down, actually. Yeah. And she's like, okay, God damn it. Well, you could at least get us some food. And he's like, no, I'm taking a nap. And she's like, okay, fine. I'll go get the food. So she crawls down off the hill. She goes to find food. And she runs into 2 Dothraki blood riders that she has never seen. Mm-hmm. And within minutes, she's surrounded by the entire Khalasar. She doesn't know any of these Dothraki dudes. That none of them were the ones that served her or anything. Yeah. And they take her off. And she's like, I think I know what's about to happen.
And I don't like it.
She takes a ring off, Lord of the Rings style, throws it on the ground, and they take her away. And hold on, we got one more. Sorry, we have 2 more. So in Dorne, it's time for Marcel and Tristan to leave. Mm-hmm. Tristan, with Jaime and Bronn. As they're on the docks, getting ready to leave, they're saying their goodbyes. Marcella gets to Ellaria Sand, and Ellaria is like, "You're all right, kid," and gives her a big old kiss on the lips. And so they get on the boat and they start sailing, and they have like all this stuff is going around about Cersei and Jaime's incest and everything. And Jaime sits down with Marcella and he's like, I've got to tell you something. And Marcella's like, I think I already know. And he's like, no, I don't think you do. And she's like, you're my dad. And he's like, yeah, that is actually,
I guess you actually do already.
That is exactly it. And they have this touching conversation. And at the end of it, more or less, she's like, I'm glad that you're my dad.
Aw.
And then her nose starts to bleed.
Oh.
And she falls over dead. And there's a cut to Ellaria on the docks, and her nose is bleeding too. And she takes the antidote from the long farewell and takes it and is okay. And that kiss that she gave Marcella, that's how she transferred the poison. In King's Landing, Cersei confesses to the High Sparrow so that she can go home. Mm-hmm. She confesses to sex with Lancel, but not to any of the other stuff. So he's like, okay, you can go home and await trial, but first you have to atone. And her atonement, they strip her down naked and they clean her and they walk her through the streets of King's Landing from the Sept to the Red Keep, while all the common people throw food and spit and shit on her, and she can't do anything. A bunch of guys exposing themselves to her. Mm-hmm. It's awfully humiliating, and you can tell that it like hits Cersei to her core. She gets back to the Red Keep, and Qyburn covers her with a blanket and is more or less like, don't worry about it. I got a little gift for you.
We got this covered.
I want you to meet the new member of the Kingsguard, Sir Gregor Clegane, who is this 8-foot fucking monster who is clearly a zombie under the fucking helmet. And he's like, I did a little work on Sir Gregor Clegane. And we'll take care of all this. Last scene of the season at the wall. Oh, we got some names to delete up here. Okay, dead. Here, because he came back to not dead, but not here.
Not here.
Is everyone? Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. And Jon. Okay. Cool. So, Jon talks to Sam, and he's like, "You're going to go to Old Town, to the Citadel, and learn to be a maester, and you're going to be the maester at Castle Black. So get the fuck out of here." Mm-hmm. And so he's like, "All right,
cool."
He takes Gilly, and they leave.
And they fuck off.
Yep. So Davos arrives begging for aid. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Fucking shit's going down.
Everything is bad."
Yeah. Remember, he doesn't know what happens to Shireen either. Yeah. And Jon's like, "We can't. We just don't have it. Like, we can't do it." Yeah. And he's like, "Okay, that makes sense.
Understandable."
Stan's probably dead by now anyway." Yeah. So he's in his. Jon's hanging out by himself. And Ollie runs up to him and is like, "Your Uncle Benjen is back." And Jon's like, "I had forgotten about him. Yeah. That's like season 1 shit. Like, what?" And so he runs out with him and he's like, "What? Where is he?
The fuck, where is he?"
And he's like, and there are a group of Night's Watch guys like huddled around something. And he's like, "He's over here." And so he runs over. He pushes his way through the guys, and there's a sign nailed to the wall. It said "Traitor." And he turns around, and Sir Alistair Thorne grabs him and drives a knife into his chest.
Oh.
And says, "For the Watch." And then every guy there walks up and stabs him. And the last person, Ollie, walks up to him, drives a knife into his heart. And regardless of what you've seen, Jon Snow fucking dies.
Well, shit.
Dead. I mean, falls over, eyes open, absolutely dead. And that's how the fucking season ends. And this was...
I imagine that was controversial.
Yes, because I'm pretty sure that this is... Jon dying is the last thing that has happened in the novels. Like, I don't think that he's written anything past that. So, like, no one knew at the time. Like, everyone thought that he was actually dead.
Yeah.
But then a bunch of people were like, "Is he?" Because it's Jon Snow. But, like, everyone thought that, like, Ned Stark was, like, the main character and everything. So, yeah. All right. Thus concludes season 6. Or 5.
That was a lot of shit.
Yes. Yes, it was. I'm glad we started a little bit early. And we would have been closer to on time if I hadn't left off an entire episode from the last season.
Okay.
Next week,
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, to get geared up for the House of the Dragon season 2 release, we'll do season 1, which means I'm gonna have to get another map. I'm gonna have to get a whole other set of characters. But
have fun with that.
I'm looking forward to it because that show is structured so differently that it's like there are a couple of episodes and then there's like a big time jump, right? Which is going to be more work for me because I'm going to have like 3 different versions of every character.
It's also like more time with fewer characters.
Yeah, and they don't go as many places. You're right, but it's, yeah.
A lot of it's like King's Watch and Dragonstone.
King's Landing, yeah.
Landing, yeah.
Next week on Wednesday, so we'll be doing that on Wednesday at 7. Before that, we'll have the Jedi Enclave presenting. Now, this is Podcasting Podcast. We're going to have some final predictions for Star Wars Acolyte. We're going to do a Mike Zero Live of the Week.
Okay.
We're going to discuss, between now and then, I'm going to watch the new X-Men. Yeah, and we'll be discussing that.
It's really good.
Yeah, and then whatever Star Wars news happens then, or between now and then, we'll talk about that too. So look for this video in video form with some of the stuff trimmed down and my bathroom break taken out. Probably on Monday, or maybe earlier because I don't have to do the podcast this week.
That's true.
And then I will be playing Battlefront 2 tomorrow with the boys from Gremlin Squad. That'll be at 7 as well, so you can tune in for that. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for hanging around the whole time. I appreciate it, and I'll see you later.
Bye.